to the April 1st, 2019 County Commission meeting. We have, I think it's 9 people to address the commission tonight. The first person on our agenda is someone that I have asked to come and address the commission regarding suicide prevention, and I'd like to publicly thank Commissioner Jason Knight for getting me in touch with this lady. But Misty Leash, did I say your last name right, Misty? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. So thank you for having me. My name is Misty Leitch. I am the director of the Zero Suicide Initiative for the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. We are a nonprofit organization based in Nashville. We do cover the entire state. Our model is prevention, intervention, and postvention. I have brought with me a ton of information for your pleasure. Some of the things that we have been doing here in Clarksville, a few of us just got back from Arlington, Virginia, DC area. We go up there and work with the service members, veterans, and their families' technical assistance center in conjunction with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at a federal level to help prevent veteran suicides here, specifically in the Clarksville area. We have trained all of the city of Clarksville employees in suicide prevention curriculum at no charge to the city. So you can ask any city employee. They have gone through and obtained certification in the QPR model, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. My understanding is that I'm here to address what services we can offer the county. I invite, we are able to train all county employees at no charge, also in suicide prevention curriculums. I brought a ton of resources, as I referenced earlier. If you have time, feel free to stop by there. A few of the resources we promote are what we call these Kroger key tags. It has the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number as well as the Crisis Text Line number. These are free resources. They are nationwide resources. They're confidential resources. So you can text to get help, or you can make a phone call. Again, these are free and confidential resources. We also offer little wallet cards that we pass out to middle and high school students or educators or those who come in contact with our young adults so that they have a resource with them as well always. We have a plethora, and I mean a plethora, of brochures around suicide prevention. I brought a very small sample with me today, primarily focused around teenagers and social media. We have church bulletin inserts. All of this is for free and available to you at no charge. Okay? All you have to do is send me an email and let me know that you're interested. We also have a resource directory. All of our materials are available online as well. So you're able to go online to tspn.org and download for free any of the information that I'm sharing with you today. This resource guide is specific to this county and a couple of the surrounding counties. So they're resource specifics for suicide prevention as to what is available in this community. Now also we know that when we lose someone to suicide, it hurts. And it's a very different kind of hurt than you will ever experience in losing someone to some other type of means. We also try to comfort and support those of us that are left behind after someone dies by suicide. So we also have a resource sheet, full page and a half of resources for individuals who are deemed survivors of suicide loss. So if you have lost someone to suicide, you are a survivor of suicide loss. And so we provide resources to you as well. Any initial questions, Mayor?
I don't have any. I just thank you for coming this evening. I don't know if any commissioners have any questions, but thank you, and I'll be sure and get some of your information. Please make sure you leave some for me.
I will leave all of that for you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
so much
for
being here.
Absolutely.
And Commissioner Knight, again, thank you for the connection. All right, our next person to address the commission is Miss Sheila Thaxton. If you'd come down to the mic. And as Miss Thaxton comes forward, I'll remind our next 8 speakers. First of all, please keep your remarks professional. I won't tolerate any attacks on any commissioners or any individual. Secondly, please leave your comments to limit your comments to 3 minutes. When the 3 minutes is up, you'll hear a little beep, buzzer or a sound, and please try to wrap your comments up at that time. And if you don't, I'll politely interrupt you. And I'm not addressing you, Ms. Thaxton, the other 8 as well. And I'll ask you to wind your comments up. So, Ms. Thaxton, the floor is yours. If you would, last thing, give us your name and your address, each individual speaker, please.
My name is Sheila Thaxton. We live at 2753 Gerald Ridge Road, Clarksville, Tennessee, 37043. My family's with me. My little ones had to step out. I'm just going to read this real quick to y'all. We live in the county. We are here to propose a Montgomery County state ordinance on the discharge of firearms in certain areas unlawful. We would like to propose one the same as Richland County, which states, within 300 yards of the property boundaries of any dwelling, business, or subdivision, it shall be unlawful for any person in the unincorporated area of the county to discharge any rifle, gun, pistol, revolver, or other similar instrument from or by means of which any bullet, shot, or other missile of any kind may be projected within 300 yards of any building used as a dwelling or business, or within the boundaries of any subdivision, or within 300 yards of any subdivision, and so on. We want it to be clear that we support the NRA and are by no means against people owning guns. We just want to make sure they are shooting in a designated facility for such sport like a gun range. As I read this to you, there is a 2-year-old child fighting for her life in Johnson City, Tennessee, due to a stray bullet hitting her in the head while she was playing in her front yard. We strongly feel putting this same state ordinance law into effect in Tennessee can and will keep other children or person from being victimized by a careless, reckless shot fired from a gun just for sport. We have a letter stating our experience of such incidents with our plot of land which adjoins our neighbors. We are desperately pleading for this law to be put into place due to our fear of becoming a victim of such a tragedy as the little girl in Johnson City. We sincerely hope you will take into account how the county is not country anymore due to smaller acreage being sold and closer developmental housing taking place. We thank you for listening to our plead, and we'll be glad to answer any and all questions you may have. And I do have a plot that I think the commission got a hold of showing the land and how.
Do you have copies of it, or just one?
I just have the
I
one.
think I have one, and I'll be sure and share it with our county commissioners.
I can leave this though.
Okay, that'll
Okay.
be fine.
Okay.
If you'll hand it to Investigator Stone,
Oh.
the gentleman in the uniform there, he will make sure that he gets it to me. Thank you, Ms. Thaxton.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark. Mr. Thane Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you mind name and address and all that?
Please.
My name is Thane Harris, and I reside at 121 West Drive, Clarksville, Tennessee, 37040. I am currently the General Manager and President of Airborne Disposal, and I'm here to talk about flow control. On June 12, 2017, this very commission voted against flow control. Last week, flow control was voted down by the Bi-County Board of Directors, but it was brought to today's agenda anyway. We don't know why. We've been given multiple reasons for needing flow control, like the city of Clarksville sludge needing to be remediated and mixed. This is not a problem that we as private haulers should be having to solve. This is something the landfill needs to be addressing with the city of Clarksville. The bad contract entered with the city of Franklin and the landfill. Again, this is not the problem of our private haulers to have to correct. We've also been told that the landfill needs flow control to sustain operations. However, according to landfill director David Graham, the landfill brings in approximately 700 tons per day and is making a profit every month. This is a landfill that is riddled with complaints about smell, groundwater contamination, and other violations. Adding flow control will do nothing to help these problems. The statement was made at the last board meeting, if we don't have flow control, then what do we have to do to get trash? Their answer was to institute flow control, which was voted down. If the landfill wishes to gain more volume and compete, they should look inside their operations and try to gain efficiencies, look at their current contracts and staffing and see where cuts can be made, just as a private hauler would have to do. And not force a tax on private haulers that would ultimately land on the citizens. When government can no longer compete, they legislate. In the last 4 years, we have seen gate rates rise from $21 a ton to $41 a ton, and the answer given for the last raise, and I quote, "We looked at other disposal facilities in our area and realized we were not charging enough." This is a false and poor excuse for a price increase. As a private hauler, we have nothing to look at but a bad track record of price increases from the landfill that ultimately end up being passed on to the residents so that we can sustain our operations. If flow control is implemented, what would stop the rates from increasing again and eliminating our ability to compete? At the end of the day, the Bi-County Board voted no on flow control. This has been added to the mayor's agenda today with still no reasonable explanation for instituting it as the laws of 1991 state are necessary. I urge you all as a voting citizen in this county and as a business owner to vote no on flow control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Chris Blackwell.
Good evening. Chris Blackwell, reside at 2091 Bend Road, Clarksville, Tennessee, 37040. I am the owner of Airborne Disposal and would like to know why my company has been singled out by the Director of Solid Waste Operations, David Graham. On January 23rd, after the Bi-County Board meeting, I was approached by the Director of Solid Waste and was personally told that flow control existed and he planned on enforcing it. I took it as a personal threat when he told me I could bring my trash back to him or he could make me through his channels and I could be looking at fines if I didn't get it back to his landfill. On January 29th, I received a letter from the Director of Solid Waste. In this letter, the director outlined that flow control was established in 2010 and I was in violation of this order, stating those resolutions are on the books now. This was a lie. The director also outlined that I should continue not to bring him my waste, he would have to report it to his board, of which both Stewart and Montgomery mayors sit. Again, another scare tactic. He offered a proposed rate of $33 per ton, but also acknowledged that it only cost him approximately $25 per ton to bury it. Feeling like my company was being singled out and threatened, I reached out to other haulers in Montgomery County to find that I was the only one that received this letter. But I was not the only one that had taken advantage of the competitive marketplace and moved my waste stream to another disposal site. I had to hire an attorney to respond to these threats and also ask the director to provide the flow control laws, of which he provided me with documentation of resolutions from 2010 that were voted down in 2017. The director was in attendance at that 2017 meeting when the resolutions were voted down, but failed to represent that fact. I offered to negotiate with the director and offered a fair rate of $26 per ton for all my waste generated in the region. However, I was told by email, it's probably best just to see how this sorts itself out. As the director is a paid employee of Montgomery County, I would ask that the commission find out why I was singled out, lied to, and misled by him. I am still willing to negotiate with the board, but do not wish to negotiate with Mr. Graham, as his words holds no value to me or my company, as I think of him as a snake in the grass.
I'm not going to let you attack him. He doesn't have the right to speak against you. I'm not going to let you sit here and attack him.
I'm just stating the facts.
He's not an employee of Montgomery County, and you know that.
Okay, the last sentence, I would like for someone to explain to me why this happened to me and my company. Thank you.
Reverend Jeffrey Lott.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Greetings, board members of the Montgomery County Commission. I am very grateful for this time allowed to address you concerning the right to manufacture, store, distribute, and sell beer at our church facility. Although many in this community would not understand our request or feel that it is not appropriate in regards to the understanding of the Christian faith, we all know that the Christianity is bigger than one church or one denomination. So many have different ways of practicing their faith. We have a long history and deep relationship to the brewing arts. It was Martin Luther who started the Reformation and said once, "It is better to think about church in the alehouse than to think about the alehouse in the church." And he had many other beer quotes giving us the freedom to enjoy. We are looking for a change in the county regulations or an exemption for our church, for we feel that it is our right under this Constitution to practice our faith as we understand it. The city of Clarksville doesn't allow such liberties, and we don't understand why the county doesn't. It is a question of alcohol. We are allowed to have sacramental wine in our worship, and during Passover, Jews are allowed to have kosher wine. Is it just the ingredients? We feel that brewing beer, having a part in our culture, and offering it or selling it is a way to have an outreach to the people who live here and to help support our ministries within the community. We hope you agree.
Mr. Lott, would you give us your address, please, sir?
Sure, it's 1332 Bluebonnet Drive, Clarksville, Tennessee.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barry Smitto.
Barry Smitto, 2402 Old Ashton City Road. As you know, there were 2 suicides and attempted suicide at one school here, and they were all related to a child being bullied. Here's an exact quote from the mother of a student at that school. "Not a day goes by without another student telling my 13-year-old son to kill himself. It's frighteningly a very popular thing heard in the halls there. 6 days ago, the New York Post wrote, a 10-year-old Texas boy killed himself after he was relentlessly tormented at school by his classmates, who even told the child to kill yourself. I wonder if the students who are telling others they should kill themselves are copycatting Michelle Carter of Massachusetts, who was sentenced to prison after she convinced her boyfriend to kill himself via text messages. These identical occurrences in 3 separate states prove we must determine the source and stop this trend by doing everything possible, including having empathy lessons and asking high-ranking elected officials to announce that any student who tells another to kill themselves will be suspended and face possible criminal charges. We also need to look closely at the media we're all being exposed to, and especially the program designed for children. Researchers found that output aimed at children as young as 7 had the highest levels of violence. They recorded 26 acts of aggression an hour compared with just 5 in shows aimed at general audiences. There is no excuse for that. The complete article about violent programming aimed at children is linked in the text of this speech, which is posted on our new Facebook group titled Christian Action Team. It can also be seen at christianactionteam.blogspot.com. In the future, we'll have more summaries regarding everything mentioned and additional things that are endangering many Americans. Detrimental programming has targeted children for decades. I was 15 when I was repeatedly told I was born to be wild. Rick Derringer told us, "Getting high all the time, hope you all are too," when Peter Fonda was taking LSD in the movie Easy Rider. I have family and friends who died because of drugs and alcohol. Now we have country music that flagrantly promotes alcohol and fighting, and other types of music that promote many bad behaviors. In 1961, President Eisenhower said, "The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist," end of quote. Are we being intentionally programmed by the very wealthy people who control the media and the national banking industry? When we are intellectually weak and buy their products that we can't afford, we need to borrow from them and they make huge profits on the interest we pay. Are the persons who could help us the most using the media to divide and conquer us? God expects us to love each other and try to solve this, but we must also keep our love and faith in God because we're going to need Him in the turbulent times ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smitto. Mr. Jeff Purvis.
My name is Jeff Purvis, 1157 Dunbar Cave Road, 37043, Clarksville. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for having this time for us to give our side of what we're looking at here. The reason I'm here is I own a couple of different businesses here. I own Queen City Disposal as one, I own Queen City MPG Processing Center, which hauls transfer trash out of Clarksville now. And on April the 3rd, I had a contract with the Bi-County Landfill to accept the transfer of trash from Robertson County. On April the 3rd, 2016, Bi-County Landfill contacted me and informed me that they could no longer accept my trash. So I had 15 days. They gave me a 15-day stay to find somewhere to place my trash. During this time, I also felt it best to make sure that my disposal company, which is Queen City Disposal, wasn't stuck with this same situation because, you know, basically they were running out of landfill space. So during this time that I was trying to find somewhere to move this trash, I struck a deal with a disposal company up in White Plains, Kentucky, to move it, and I got a long-term contract just to make sure that we never got this problem again. So I moved the Robertson County trash to White Plains, and during this time we built a transfer station just in case this did happen, and it came close to basically closing up our landfill. So I struck a deal with the county mayor, the county commission, to give a $5 royalty fee to help cure up some of the problems with the landfill. To this day, I still pay $5, and I think it averages somewhere in $35,000 to $40,000 range. And then I still haul C and D into their landfill through my garbage company. That's another $30,000 or so. So I'm not really sure exactly how much we still spend with the landfill, but I still spend a lot. But the one key thing right here I don't take up airspace. I pay the county a royalty fee, and we preserve airspace. This is very valuable. Our garbage is not buried in Montgomery County, and they get a fee for it going somewhere else. So that's kind of how I got here to start with. I spent millions of dollars building a transfer station during a hard time to try to build anything during the winter. And there again, I'm not really sure why we're here now. As one of the speakers said earlier, this matter came up in the Bi-County board meeting when the same subject came up. The Bi-County board, where this controls all this, voted it down at their own board meeting. And then here we are again. It's before the commission. I really don't quite understand this, but here we are. Does this mean that the Bi-County board really doesn't have any authority over even what they say? So I'm really confused with that. In the last meeting, the question was asked if they were profitable. There again, he said monthly they are profitable. So obviously I'm out of time, but I don't think this is a 3-minute speech. I think this is something that everybody needs to be educated on and understand what this means. We're giving a tool over to the next mayor, the next commissioners, not necessarily the commissioners, to the next mayor and to the next Bi-County director. So this is a very powerful tool. This flow control is very powerful. It's basically they can raise the rate to whatever that they want to, and we have no say over it. So I'd be very careful when when I voted and made sure that everybody understands flow control. Pull up Middle Point landfill. It'll tell you a lot about what, there's 4,000 tons a day going in there, going in that landfill. And the average truck comes in my shop, in our transfer station, weighs 6 tons.
Mr. Purvis, if you would, wrap your comments up.
Okay.
No, you can finish your where you were. Just find an end point.
Okay, well, that's pretty much my end point is basically, we don't want this traffic coming through our town because it comes through Stewart, Dover County, Dover. It comes off exit 11, exit 8, exit 4, exit 1, right through the middle of Clarksville. And I don't think we're looking for that, for us to be the trash king of Tennessee. I really don't think so, and that's what we would be. Thank y'all so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. David Atkins.
Thank you. David Atkins, 3742 Pace Road, Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm here as an employee of a local trash processing facility that pretty much functions as a trash MSW transfer station. And I'm concerned how flow control is going to affect my job and lots of other local jobs. So I'm asking for you commissioners to vote against flow control. This law, I feel, would negatively affect all residents of Montgomery and Stewart, city and county. A portion of the Montgomery County trash comes to the processing center where I work. We efficiently package it and we ship it to a facility in Kentucky, as Jeff alluded to. Some of the local haulers use our facility to save the time from driving all the way to the landfill in Woodlawn. I mean, about the only thing I see as a purpose for the flow control is to raise their revenue. You know, the problem with that is it's going to cost us citizens of Montgomery and Stewart County. And all they're going to do is pass that on to us. This law is going to give them the authority to force the trash there, then they can set the rates at whatever they want to make their business cash flow. I think this is unfair because this would allow Bi-County to increase prices unchecked by the lack of competition. America's built on competition and free trade. Currently, right now, there's a lot of competition amongst the trash haulers. This keeps our prices low here. So flow control is going to take that freedom away by forcing all Montgomery County and Stewart County trash to come into that landfill. So that puts the trash haulers at the mercy of Bi-County as far as their tipping fees are concerned. It eliminates that competition. So I feel that Bi-County should look to control their expenses and operate more efficiently as our private industry has to do if they want higher margins. Look inward on that. Flow control does not prevent Bi-County from accepting trash from outside Montgomery or Stewart County. This means they could make deals with any other county or city and bring trash in at a lower rate than what we're paying the citizens of this county. I've been in trucking since 1974. I've been on both sides, as a shipper, as a carrier, a hauler, a trucker, whatever you want to call that. But hauling trash, it's just specialized trucking. It's no different than any other trucking. You have to run as efficiently as possible to remain in business. If you're not efficient, you're out of business. That's just the way the American system works. So you have to control your true trucking cost. You have to determine what those costs are realistically and apply those as business principles. Each destination has to be its own business. In other words, everybody you've got that's a customer. You have to make that route work. Sometimes it's more costly or it's more cost efficient to use subcontract. I think that's something maybe they could look at. But if we don't, if we preserve Bi-County landfill instead of overloading it with all this trash maybe that we think may be coming in the near future, where will our trash go? Where are our kids going to dispose of? Let's conserve and protect Bi-County as long as we can for us and for our children. Thank you.
Mr. Greg Wynn.
Thank you, Mayor. County Commission members, I appreciate the opportunity to address you on the issue of flow control. My name is Greg Gwynn. I live at 1165 Dunbar Cave Road. I've lived in this community for, almost 59 years. I'm a principal in Queen City Metals, largest scrap recycler in this area, and I'm also an owner of MPG Processing. We process municipal solid waste and pull recyclables. Obviously, as you can imagine, I am not for flow control, but maybe not for the reasons you might think. Flow control limits choice to communities that it affects. It acts as a crutch to the landfill to where that it benefits. They have the ability to increase their revenues without competition, and this causes them not to be mindful of their costs. Flow control also stifles innovation. In Tennessee, there are few, if any, instances where flow control is used. You might ask why. Well, that's really pretty simple, because the private marketplace works really, really well. The trend has been to go to large private regional landfills, and that has allowed many communities to scale back their operations and preserve their landfill airspace for many, many years. As some of you may know or become aware, Bi-County has received many violations from Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. They've had a lot of complaints from the neighbors that live around there for noxious odors. They've even paid fines to address issues that they've still yet to address. In addition to the TDEC solid waste violations, they're under notices of violation from the TDEC's Division of Water Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers for groundwater contamination, wetland impairment, and destruction. And these violations are ongoing. Last week, when the Bi-County Board of Directors voted against implementing flow control, I felt like that they had taken an important first step in recognizing that they needed to get their house in order before they committed themselves further. The last thing our community needs at this point, with the way and shape by county landfill has been run and operated and continues to be, is the last thing we need is to take more trash. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. Middle Point over, as Jeff mentioned, Middle Point over in Murfreesboro, they take a lot of garbage every day. It's a lot of trucks. And with traffic like it is here, I just don't think that's something that we want to consider. I will tell you in closing that I've spent my entire business career in the solid waste and recycling industries. And I believe that in order for Bi-County to be successful, and I want Bi-County to be successful, I believe that they need to take a very hard look at all aspects of their business and make their costs fit their revenues and their obligations. As a result, I would respectfully ask you to oppose any attempt to impose flow control. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now call our meeting to order. Our first item of business are zoning cases. Mr. Tyndall, if you'd come forward, our first case is CZ2 2019, application of Merlin R. and Judy M. Stegner from AG to E1.
Good evening, Mayor, County Commission. Yes, our first application today is 1.09 acres, presently zoned ag, proposed to go to E1. It's at the intersection of Lake Road and Moore Hollow Road. It's an existing parcel with a single-family home and an accessory structure on it. An application's been approved by the Montgomery County Board of Zoning Appeals recently to approve the setbacks for the structure, which were non-conforming at the time. The applicant's statement is, this has been a single-family lot for many years, and although only recently, due to a remodel of our house, has zoning become a question, and they'd like to continue to remodel their house. It is in the planned growth area over in the Woodlawn District. As you can see, it's pretty much surrounded by ag and some other E1 uses. There were no department comments of concern. This is approaching the site. The site's at the top of this rise on the right side up there. It's the carport, the home, and then the woodshed workshop to the left there. That was the structure in question on the corner. It's an oddly shaped lot on the corner of two roads that have pretty large setbacks. It has two front setbacks there. They're fixing up the shop on the corner to be a personal shop for their own wood shop use, and they would like to just remodel and continue to live in the house. Staff recommended approval based on the fact that the proposed zoning is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The proposed rezoning request would bring into conformance the existing lot with minimum standards. The proposed E1 request is not out of character with other lots in the district. Adequate infrastructure serves this site, and there are no adverse environmental issues, and the Regional Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall regarding CZ2 2019? Mr. Tyndall, I'll let you go through these, and I'll just open one public hearing and call for comments on all of them if you're okay with that.
It's your meeting.
Okay.
Sure.
Next is CZ3 2019, application of Clarksville Montgomery County Industrial Development Board, Knox and Shirley Thomas from AG to M2.
Yeah, on this application, the applicant is Knox and Shirley Thomas. The agent is the IDB of Clarksville Montgomery County. The acreage is 386.63 acres, currently zoned agriculture, proposed to go to M2 manufacturing. It is an extension of the zoning classification to the west. The property is located south of Tylertown Road, east of Jim Johnson Road, and northwest of Guthrie Highway, behind the Mint Springs subdivision. It does run the length of the Tennessee-Kentucky border up there, which is the top of that map. It's right where Tylertown curves up into Kentucky, is right where this property starts. It's behind the LG plant. There's a road called Life's Good Way, which has been constructed by TDOT, which runs to the south side of LG, which would be the proposed future connection into this site from Life's Good Highway out to Jim Johnson and Solar Way. The applicant's statement would be this change would allow us to market this property for an industrial user. The property is a vacant rolling farmland with accessory agricultural structures, and the property is bounded on the east by the Spring Creek and its floodplain. It is in the rural area of the growth plan. Here's the property up close. As you can see, it's a portion of one full track and then two other tracks portioned together there. This map's important. I'll put this up later if you have any questions. This shows you the floodplain of the Spring Creek, hatched out there in blue on that map. In some places, it's over 1,000 feet wide. Here's the zoning map. As you can see, the existing IDB lands up there with Google and LG, primarily off Jim Johnson and Solar Way, and this would be an extension of the M2 to the east. Department comments. The city engineer, since the city supplies the utilities to the park out there, would require utility system upgrades. There were some drainage comments received. Since this is in the floodplain, it does lie in the special flood hazard area. Obviously, any development would have to avoid that area, as well as a state mandated buffer beyond that. We also provided the map and the application to Christian County Community Development Services, which is basically our sister organization over there in Christian County, and they sent back no objections or concerns. The reason we did that was because of the scale of the project being right there on the state line. And they may have to work with the state on Tylertown Road in the future if that's going to have to be improved up there. There was a traffic study done, and it was reviewed by, or was sent over to the county engineer with no comments received back, but it did state that Jim Johnson Road would still maintain a C classification for traffic out there, which is completely acceptable. It's in the Trenton Road planning area. Staff has recommended approval based on the facts that the proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The M2 zoning proposal is an extension of the existing M2 to the west, and the proposal will permit the expansion of an established industrial park in an area identified in the land use plan. The M2 request is bound by the Spring Creek and floodplain to the east, and this will serve as an ideal buffer between the existing zoning designations and this one. And no adverse environmental impacts were identified at this time. Obviously, any future site plans as they come in I don't believe this is being done for a specific tenant, but if it is, we'll handle that at the site plan or subdivision phase in the future. This photo, to my right is the state of Kentucky. That's right where Tylertown curves back into Tennessee right there. So everything on the left you see here, which is currently zoned ag, would go to M2. These are some of those accessory structures out there. It is a working farm. Some pictures as you enter the Spring Creek subdivision. Mint Springs subdivision. This is from Mint Springs subdivision. Looking back at the property, you can see how it drops off relatively quickly. The Spring Creek is located back in that tree line. That tree line would remain undisturbed on both sides of the creek within that floodplain. Here's another view a little further up in Mint Springs, back of that tree line, looking at those properties in question, as well as this one. That one's a little down Guthrie Highway as you get towards Mint Springs. The property's on your left here and to the rear of that tree line. This is coming up off Guthrie Highway. There's a small road, and this is, you're looking up pretty much across all the property here on the right side there. I mentioned staff recommended approval, and the Regional Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Any questions of Mr. Tindall on CZ3 2019? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. Is the IDB looking to purchase this property?
I can't speak for them. They are the agent, but I don't know their private dealings with the property owner.
I think we get that question answered when they speak. Any other questions of Mr. Tindall? All right. CZ4 2019, application of Shane Gallo from AG to E1.
This property is 1.09 acres, zoned ag, proposed to go to E1. It is an extension of the zoning classification. Pack a lunch because you're going out Lockby Road near the edge of the county out there. It's approximately 880 feet north of the Lockby Road, Mosley Road intersection. It's an existing parcel with an existing single-family home there. The applicant's statement is that they want to improve the property, buy or build a new home. The existing home is old and requires too much to remodel. We'll tear down the old home upon the completion of the new construction. I'll add a note there that they'll have to coordinate with the codes department on that, as they will have two buildings on the same structure for a short period of time. It is in the rural area of the growth plan. There were no department comments or concerns. Here's the property up close. As you can see, this area does have a bit of a pocket of E1. In the past, there's a lot of conforming and non-conforming lots in the area. It's in the Sango planning area. The staff recommends approval based on the fact that the proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The proposed rezoning request would bring an existing lot into compliance with the minimum standards and afford them the opportunity to reconstruct a new single-family house. The proposed E1 zone request is not out of character with the surrounding residential zoning districts, and adequate infrastructure serves the site, or there's no impacts. The site's here right on the right beyond this tree. And now we've switched, and now it's here on the left up there. There's the home in question, which will be torn down and either a new one built behind it or in its place. This just gives the applicant the opportunity to work with the codes department and figure that out. Staff recommended approval, and Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Any questions of Mr. Tindall on CZ4 2019? Thank you, Mr. Tindall. We'll now go into public hearing to hear comments related to CZ2, CZ3, and CZ4 2019. I would just remind those that would like to speak for or against any of these cases, we'll call them out individually, but please give us your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. First off, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ2 2019? Anyone to speak in favor of CZ2 2019? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ2 2019. Anyone to speak in opposition? All right, CZ3 2019, anyone to speak on behalf of CZ3 2019? Please come forward. Mr. Tate? If you would, please give us your name and your address. I think you're acting as agent for the property owners.
Yes, sir. My name is Frank Tate, address 2830 Chatfield Drive, Clarksville, Tennessee, 37043. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to request your support for the rezoning of this 386.6 acres. The CMC IDB has been a long-standing entity that has focused on the future and preparation for the growth of our community. I not only know this by my own personal experience, but I know this over the course of the last several weeks. I've had many consultants across the country that I've come in contact with that says Clarksville is doing it right. Clarksville, keep doing what you have been doing and don't stop, and so on. This community is on every site consultant's radar throughout the country and globally. However, with that notoriety, it means we must continue to grow together and think outside the box. Before you tonight is a rezoning case moving property from agricultural to M2. This comes after a relationship has been developed with the landowner that has asked for us to act as the acting agent for their property. The 386.6 acres being discussed borders Kentucky, Tylertown Road, and has a southeastern natural barrier of Spring Creek. Taking into consideration our residential growth momentum, this allows us to consider how we prepare for industrial growth, factoring buffers and possible encroachment. Today, I'm asking for you to support this rezone, as this will help us support 1 to 2 large industrial prospects or several small projects. In my opinion, the size of the project doesn't matter, but being prepared for when the project comes and wanting to locate in our community is key. A few more details that I would like to share with you very quickly. Since the start of the fiscal year, we've had 45 inquiries about our community from local or from national and international projects considering relocation or expansion. We've had 15 different companies come to our community over that period of time that are considering us as their new home, and multiple phone calls all to learn about Clarksville and what we're doing. Today, we have 593 acres remaining in the North Park. With this tract, it would allow us to have a contiguous 706-acre piece of ground. In total, our current owned land balance is at 740 acres, counting the north, south, and original park. I tell you all this because we have a high demand for relocating jobs to our community or growing jobs in our community. Our average request today out of those 45 inquiry projects are companies looking to locate on more than 200 acres of land. Our notoriety with successful projects that we've seen here in the past are large-scale companies, knowing that we have an eligible and available workforce. That's a plus for all of us. But what that means is that we need to be prepared for it. I'll take any questions you may have.
Commissioner Beal?
Does the IDB plan on buying this parcel of land?
Not currently. Will we ever buy it?
If you would, go back to Mr. Beal's mic.
Is that the plan?
There has been some conversation, but we're currently not in a position to where we're negotiating on the price or anything.
I think if you bought it, you'd have to come to this body to get the money.
That's absolutely correct, Mayor.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm listening to all of the flow controls. I'm listening to all of the building projects we got going. I'm listening to all the schools in the past that we're trying to build. And one of the things that concern me, the thing that concerns me the most is fire protection. Okay. We're going to have to address that. I'm making a comment. So we're just going to have to address that. This body's going to have to address that in the future, because we can't, it's no way we continue to build $100 million in schools, residential districts, and we don't have fire protection out there. We're going to have to address that sooner or later. So that's all my comment is.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that part of this parcel, part of this project fronts onto Highway 79.
The natural barrier of Spring Creek is the only thing in consideration here. We don't come anywhere near, well, can you go back? Do I have control of this?
I was under the impression that the house and the lot where the house sits now was included in this.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
The Thomas family has asked that they remain ownership and keep the balance of the property south of Spring Creek zoned ag.
Okay. So what are we looking at as far as boundaries between this project and Mint Springs subdivision?
So if you're looking at the map that's currently shown, let's see here. I'm gonna go back one slide. So you see the like the dog leg shape there? That's a 40 acre parcel of ground there that's currently being farmed. That's with a 100-year floodplain. Currently, that floodplain has been a big hindrance on previous discussions. Most prospects and industries are going to build at 500 to 1,000 feet away from that floodplain. So it's all going to be to the northwestern portion of that. So your natural barrier of the creek is your best effort for all of us.
Would there be any additional boundary or barrier added?
That's really going to be up to building and codes, but as far as what's currently there, I mean, it could very well be a berm.
Thank you.
Commissioner Knight?
Hey, Frank, thank you for taking the opportunity to come up here and speak. I'd like to know, because I heard Mr. Tyndall state that there was a traffic study done. Is it a traffic study or a traffic assessment that was?
An assessment.
Okay.
Currently, there's no change needed. I would like to add to that, though. Based on previous developments in the industrial park, when Life's Good Way was designed, my predecessor and the engineers looked at the potential of putting a bridge over the Spring Creek, and the hydrology studies that came with that. It was rather extensive and would be a very expensive project for us to consider. So when Life's Good Way started being designed by TDOT, the focus of the remaining balance of this property, the 386, is going to be to push the property north to Tylertown or push it out to Jim Johnson Road. So 79 should not see any major traffic increase from this.
Thanks.
Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes. Mr. Tate, you said that this 386 acres is contiguous to some additional acreage that you said would give you a larger plot for anyone looking for a large area. Can you tell me where that contiguous area is at?
Yes, ma'am. So on the map that's currently up there, you can see where Jim Johnson Road is and then where the CZ 03-2019. Everything in gray is currently owned, north of Guthrie Highway is currently owned by the Industrial Development Board. This was property that was purchased from Hemlock Semiconductor.
Okay, so actually that particular parcel that I'm looking at there is owned by the IDB.
Everything in gray, and then what the rezone request is for is everything in the highlighted red border.
Okay, and currently you're only acting as agent for the landowner?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ3 2019? Anyone else to speak on behalf? Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak in opposition to CZ3 2019?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Anna Alardi, and my husband Joe and I reside at 4818 Clear Springs Road, Clarksville, Tennessee 37040, in the Mint Springs subdivision. We have tonight a group of residents from Mint Springs that have come to the meeting over there. If you'd like to rise, that would be great. The residents of Mint Springs request that you delay or deny rezoning Intuitive CZ 32019 until a complete impact assessment can be formed on the area. By definition, the action to rezone to the M2 General Industrial District classification, in which the principal use of the land is for manufacturing and other heavy industry, this could all have a significant adverse effect on surrounding property. We are concerned about the environmental impact to our homes and property. Air, water, light, and noise pollution that could arise from industry could poison these resources and impact our health. Many of our neighbors are elderly and have chronic health conditions. Industry could have an impact on wildlife and endangered plant life in the bordering woodlands and wetlands. Pollution in Spring Creek could devastate fish, snapping turtles, other endangered wildlife. Impacting Spring Creek drainage could cause flooding in the neighboring property. Impacting the drainage possibly could risk creating sinkholes in the area. We are concerned about the impact to our property values. The market value of our largest investment, our homes, could drop significantly if heavy industry moves within eyesight. We are concerned about the impact to traffic in the area and the potential tax dollars needed to address infrastructure expansion. We are concerned that the expansion into this area is unnecessary at this time. There seems to be ample unused capacity in the existing M2 zoned area. We understand the importance of job creation and economic development, but we challenge the Planning Commission to develop a win-win solution, protecting the homes and property of the residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to CZ3 2019?
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Commission, Mr. Mayor. By way of introduction, my name is Ed Augustine. I live at 4806 Clear Springs Road, Clarksville, Tennessee 37040, which is in District 19. I'm speaking to you in regards to the rezoning requests within our district, that being CZ 03 2019, AG to M2. The IDB sent notification letters only to 4 homeowners in the Mint Springs subdivision. However, in the letter, it does indicate rezoning will affect the Mint Springs subdivision. So the question would be, why didn't all the homeowners get the letter? Fortunately, we communicate with each other, as evidenced by our appearance here this evening. There are some 25 homes in Mint Springs. It is a modern, well-kept subdivision, a wonderful place to call home. My wife and I are very concerned that this rezoning request, if approved, will have a severe impact on our neighborhood. It is my understanding that the IDP contacted the landowner. I am puzzled since there is still available land in the industrial park. I believe we can all agree that our district has more than its share of industrial development. Placing a plant factory bordering our neighborhood would be disastrous. Construction, negative environmental impact on traffic, because if you look at Tylertown Road, it's a very narrow road that is going to have a traffic impact on 79 because they're going to have to go somewhere. And it would just lead to the destruction of the rolling hills of Tennessee. That's what our neighborhood has. I'm going to talk about my wife and I just in closing. My wife, Jackie, and I, we're in our 70s. We purchased our retirement home in 2012, as it was a very desirable location. I've been a citizen of Clarksville since 1985, completing my 25-year Army career. I've just recently retired from Tennessee Oncology as their Director of Corporate Compliance. My daughter is a small business owner. My 3 grown grandsons all graduated from Clarksville schools and own a small tire business. We would humbly ask the commission and the mayor to consider our plea. We're a small development, but we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in opposition to CZ3 2019?
Hi, my name is Dr. Sherilyn White. I'm one of the newbies in the neighborhood. I've been there about 5 months. I just joined Premier Medical, and I was asked to be a representative of our neighborhood not supporting the rezoning. We are a neighborhood of about 25 homes, probably worth $7 million or more cumulatively. We have occupations, authors, professors, state troopers, retirees, lawyer, doctor. So we have a wealth of different occupations as well as ages. We have children in the neighborhood, so we take them into account when we make decisions. In general, our neighborhood is against the rezoning from agriculture to industrial in our backyard. And we're asking you to defend your constituents at this time, in our time of need. We are for industrial and financial growth in Montgomery County. We are for the industrial park and its growth and development. What we're against is it happening in our backyard. The two-dimensional maps don't give you an idea of the fact that there are no boundaries. The lights of Google and LG are clearly seen at the rooftops, right across. There's no boundary, there's no berm, there's nothing to stop winds, smokes, toxins, what have you that come in our direction. On the other hand, when it's absolutely calm and beautiful, with that humidity in the air and everything settles, it also happens to settle in our direction. So we have the prevailing winds and we have gravity that bring it towards us. So there's nothing right close to us that would protect our neighborhood. We're concerned about the light and sound. Nobody likes to sleep in a Walmart parking lot. And at lights as bright as most of our parking lots have, it would have to be at least a half a mile away, closer than that, and it would start to affect potentially our sleep. Sound, obviously traffic, but construction as well would affect our neighborhood. We also have the odors and toxins that we're concerned about. We have neighbors on dialysis. We have neighbors with COPD and asthma. And as I already said, we have children that are growing. So anything that would affect their growth or their intellect, we're not supporting. What we ask you is, if you are considering this plan, consider coming to our neighborhood so you can see, even through the bare trees, where there's nothing to prevent the visual inspection of a building going up. The lights, the sounds, chimneys, what have you, that would end up being our picturesque backdrop. I think that the only other thing I'd say is, looking at the map, the only place that's really buildable is the northwest corner. The rest of it isn't even buildable, so consider that when rezoning this area.
Thank you, ma'am. We typically allow 3 people in opposition. Ma'am, I'm going to allow you to speak because you got up early and somebody may have jumped in front of you, but I will give Mr. Tate a chance for rebuttal. If you would, please give us your name and address.
I'm going to be quick. I'm actually the only one speaking that does not live in the subdivision. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and all present. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tricia Butler, and I reside at 729 Forest Cove Court. I took an initial interest in this zoning case, thinking that it was within my ward. After speaking to the people there and driving through their neighborhood, I decided, despite this not affecting me personally, I would also speak out if needed. I physically saw how very close an industrial entity could build to this relatively secluded 25 single-family home subdivision. I knocked on most doors on the Clear Springs Road and spoke to 10 of the residents there. These citizens are strong, organized in their solidarity against this rezoning. The concerns I heard encompass traffic, environmental hazards to include health concerns, impact on the wildlife, soil, and water, light and noise pollution, and a decline in their property values. At the RPC meeting, Commissioner Riccone said that due to the buffer requirement in addition to the flood zone, there was enough distance to assuage the complainants. Driving by on LG, Jim Johnson, and Tylertown, I might have agreed. However, I would encourage you to drive to the end of the Clear Springs cul-de-sac. Look for yourself where that property line is. Imagine from their shoes and take their very real concerns to heart. What if this was your property and your family? These residents are not unreasonable. At least 2 of them stated specifically they understand and want growth that comes from industry. They just want their rights considered and their concerns validated and addressed. Perhaps some concessions or an alteration made to this buffer zone. As an unaffected but concerned third party, I ask that this noble commission please spend an adequate amount of time studying and researching this case off of the paper before making a decision that will absolutely change these residents' lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tate, do you have anything you'd like to add? No, sir. Okay. Commissioner Riccone.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not against Mint Springs at any level. I did speak for this at RPC. And I remember the fights we had on Rollo Road. I was pretty hard on the IDB, and I kept the mantra of own your buffer. It drove me crazy for the zone to go and then for the IDB or anybody to tell you what to do with the land across the street, even though they didn't own it. Looking at this, I think this affords Mint Springs ample buffer with the floodplain. You really can't, you're not going to do anything in the floodplain. And if you're looking at the northwest corner, that is going to be M2, again, if you go back to the gray. I mean, that's coming M2 at some level. So with the floodplain, you figure M2 on the northwest corner, whether this is developed or not, having it zoned properly gives the next owner, the next people down the street, to know this is where the buffer stops, this is where the zone stops. It's just a matter of time before someone comes up and buys one of these tracts on the north and tries to put a subdivision in, and then we're gonna be in the same boat of, well, it wasn't M2, and then you're gonna be fighting that. So I'm not against Mint Springs. I do truly believe it gives them ample buffer with the floodplain, and it lets everybody know this is what it's zoned, this is what the uses are, and so if you're putting a house right next door, that's what you're buying into or putting next door to it, because it's going to be residential up in those corners, and then it's going to be abutting the M2. So I'm for the M2 zone. I do want to protect Mint Springs, but I actually think this affords them protection. Thank you.
We're now at a public hearing. We'll move on to our resolutions. Our first resolution is 1941, a resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners authorizing lease of computers for CMC SS. Marcia, Danny, I don't know, or Mr. House, any of y'all want to speak to this? No? Commissioners, any questions of school system? Commissioner Johnson, if you would, hit your button.
Just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe we did public hearing on CZ 4219.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Y'all just stay seated over there for a minute. We're going to go back into public hearing for CZ4 2019, application of Shane Gallo from AG to E1. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application? You probably ought to give Mr. Johnson a high five on your way by. I apologize.
That's all right. I was going to let it go anyway. My name is Ricky Bell. I live at 2874 Ashland City Road, Clarksville, Tennessee, 37043. I am Shane Gallo's father-in-law. He's out of town. And just what we propose is to build a house and get rid of the one that's been there. And when we went to do that, they said, well, it's zoned wrong. So this is a formality. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Gallo? Thank you, sir. I apologize again. Anyone else in the audience speak on behalf of CZ4 2019? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ4 2019? Okay, now we're out of public hearing again. Mr. Commissioner Johnson, thank you again for that. Resolution 1941, you've heard me read the resolutions. Any questions related to 1941? Resolution 1942, resolution of Montgomery County Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the 2018-19 school budget. Any questions? Resolution 1943, resolution to accept Office of Domestic Preparedness State Homeland Security Grant Program and to appropriate the funds. Any questions, commissioners? Resolution 1944, resolution reaffirming and reestablishing solid waste flow control pursuant to TCA 68-211-81-4B and 906B, directing delivery of all solid waste generated within the unincorporated areas of Montgomery County, Tennessee, Stewart County, Tennessee, the city of Clarksville, Tennessee, and the city of Dover, Tennessee, to the landfill located in Montgomery County, operated by Bi-County Solid Waste Management Systems. Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mary Durrett. In front of you, everybody, I gave everybody a notebook. This notebook is for me, and put some information to it, and we're going to go through it in a short amount of time. One of the things I always say is, how did we get here? How we got here was several years back, we started running out of airspace. And our director then, Mr. Reed, was having troubles getting permits to build other cells, and we came very close to potentially having to close it down, if you will. We actually turned away garbage at one time from Robertson County, and they were no longer able to bring it to us, and we really have never gotten that back. We started trying to fix things. Mr. Reed was let go. At that time, Chief of Staff Truitt took over and started helping with the landfill, trying to get things ordered and back going, and then Director Graham was hired shortly after that. We have already gone through flow control. In June of 2017, this was on our agenda, and we went through it then, and it did not pass. A week ago, we were at the Bi-County Board, which I am a member of, and the board voted against flow control. The board voted against flow control. The Bi-County Board voted against flow control, and you've heard that here. So it's, again, I'm kind of curious to why it's still here too, but that's neither here nor there. Flow control, in the front of your book, I have definitions of basically what flow control is. Flow control, in my view, flow control is nothing more than an additional tax for people. Flow control's opportunity there is, or government, when they can't compete in the private sector, they institute flow control, which means you have to bring your garbage to Montgomery County and you can bring it nowhere else. And you have to pay whatever rate they pay. That gets rid of free enterprise, that gets rid of business, and creates a whole bunch of other things. And if they have to pay a higher rate than going to where they're going, you know, and I know, that they're just going to pass it off to our taxpayers, and it's nothing more than an additional tax. Basically, in my opinion, that's what flow control is. But if you want extra definition, it's here, and you can also Google it. If you turn the first page, if you open the booklet, in your left-hand pocket, you have two items. The item behind it that has all the little things in there. These are the violations that have occurred by county from 2017 of April to all the way to current and 2018. I didn't list all of these in there, but you can go down the list over here in a little bit and see the difference of what they are. Inadequate maintenance, it's the third column over, inadequate maintenance, inadequate erosion, leachate observed at the site, leachate entering runoff. They're all run down here, and you can find every one of these on the TDEC site. The second one is, in the last year and a half, our surety bond has gone from $17 million to $40 million. It's gone from $17 million to $40 million for a bunch of different reasons. What that surety bond means is that when you have a landfill, when you open cells and you start filling your airspace is the space that the garbage can go into. You're allotted so much tons and stuff in there, and once it fills up, you have to start closing it. And once your airspace is gone, it's gone. But that is the surety bond has gone up from $17 million to $40 million in the last couple of years. And it's for numerous reasons. It's for, I'd say it's for violations. It's for some of the things that have occurred out there. And it could be some for when we open some other cells and stuff like that. That adds to it as well. Starting in the very front, I gave you the different types of landfills, what it means to be a Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and 4. I tried to put definitions in here, especially for the newer commissions, because they weren't around 2017 when this subject came up last. If you flip the page, it's asking for a certification for when back during 2016, we were taking avian flu. Just kind of want to let everybody know that you have to watch things and things of that nature. I've heard that Tennessee has passed recently where you could actually take low-energy nuclear waste to websites. I'm very positive that we're not doing that yet, but I know that some over there in East Tennessee, close to the nuclear site, are taking some of it at this time. You're going to hear a lot of words about leachate if you turn the page. Leachate, basically, and that's the definition, leachate is any moisture, any water, any sludge, or anything else that gets in the pile of garbage and seeps down and helps during the compaction of it. Basically, it's garbage water, and then it's run off over there to kind of get cleaned. We have bugs that go in there and eat the ethanol or the gas that comes off with it and the garbage and the stuff like that to try to fix it. But leachate is a problem. If you flip the page, right there, the last page says that basically all this data can be found on the TDEC website, environmentalonlinetn.gov. You can also just Google TDEC and it'll all come up. From 2016 through March of 19, Bi-County has received 19 notices of violations. During this time period, there is more notice of violations than any other landfill in the state of Tennessee. In March of 2017 through August of 18, TDEC received 49 complaints about odors and noxious smells coming from Bi-County. Bi-County has been able to correct a lot of these repeat violations. Most severe violations include leachate leaving the landfill cells and entering the wetlands and the streams. If you flip to the first page, here's where I'm giving you the violations. That will say 2019. There's a few of them that are listed here. Spelling out terms and timelines of the order and how to correct some of our deficiencies. March 14th, 2019, very important. Leachate was observed entering our stormwater. That is a repeat violation. So we have had leachate in the Woodlawn area of our byfield get into the water table. And we have yet to, I have yet to see any fines or any violations really coming for that or any remediation coming from that yet. Behind that tab is those violations. That's there for your viewing. You can view it when you get home and stuff like that. Flipping to the next tab, 2018, violations again. Notice of violation, July 2nd, May 3rd, May 3rd, May 2nd, 2018. Anywhere from litter to the one on May 3rd, if you look at 2018, again, it's entered Fletcher's Creek over there in Woodlawn. So we have leachate that has been observed and is in the water system, basically. Second page, some more violations. April 26th, April 9th. Behind that are the violations. Again, you can read those at your leisure whenever you feel like it. Next tab, 2017. Again, violations. Not only have we gotten into the water tables at Woodlawn, we've also got into the water tables at St. Bethlehem. In the St. Bethlehem construction and development site, we've seen leachate get into there, and that's noticed in these violations. So you got it from 2017, flipping the page a little more, 2017. Behind that, again, are all the violations that occurred. You can read those at your leisure. 2016, on the next tab, these are the violations that occurred in 2016. Again, you can read them. A lot of it is leachate, some of it's intermediate improper cover, and all the other things that go with it. A lot of violations. Following the next tab, and those are all the violations behind it. The next tab, which is your last tab, are all the complaints, 49 complaints that have been lodged against the landfill for smell and noxious odors. They are not violations because they are permits, but a lot of that occurred, in my opinion, since the flood. We've been taking the city's sludge. We've been helping out our friends. Prior to the flood, the city used to take the sludge, lay it out, let it dry a little bit, and put heaters on it. And then they would sell it as topsoil, which is great topsoil because basically it's manure. The city has never replaced their heater, so we have been taking their sludge. I feel, and I'll be in one of my points, that we probably need to talk to the city about possibly heating their sludge back up, getting a dryer, and using it for topsoil again. Because the sludge, again, is leachate, and it's going through our garbage and creating quite a bit. In my opinion, a lot of these 49 complaints have come from, probably are stemming from most of that. Behind there in the very last tab, I have 3 articles, if you will, 3 files. One is my talking points, what I'll get into in a second. The next one is the one that says National Waste and Recycling that I have in the book. Basically, it's a good article for you to read. If you want to flip to the second page, you'll see that I highlighted a little area in there talking about the association. The Association of National Waste and Recycling Association is against flow control. And you can read their reasons why. And I can read them and spell them out to you if you'd like. The next one is by our own Leaf Chronicle. Where's Jimmy? Hey, Jimmy. This is our own Leaf Chronicle. This was an article that was written in 2017 prior to our vote on doing land when flow control was trying to be instituted on a previous time. That did not pass. So there's your article relating to 2017. Again, you can read that at your leisure. The very last one that I haven't talked about is my talking points. This one right here, which is 3 pages. And I've changed some of them around. Number 1, out of 95 counties in the state of Tennessee, under the 1991 Solid Waste Act, there are 0 counties out of the 95 that have flow control. 0. Why? Because private entities are able to cut costs in a manner that makes flow control unnecessary. And according to CTASC, prior to 1991's the Solid Waste Act, there were a few in East Tennessee that have flow control. One of them that we know is Sevier County. But they are constantly viewed as legally as violating the Commerce Clause, and counties that try to implement flow control face expensive and lengthy legal battles. And I'm sure that will happen to us if we try to implement this, in my opinion. Flow control in other areas of the country are used as a crutch for poorly managed landfills and enables the facility to increase tipping fees, creating a monopoly. It eliminates competition and increases prices for solid waste people. Number 3, I already gave you the piece of article there to show you that our surety bond has increased from $17 million to $40 million. Bi-County does not have a post-closure fund. What that means is whenever you bring in garbage, you eventually have to close it. And you're supposed to save a little money in a post-closure fund. We have no money put away in a post-closure fund. From 2016 to present, again, you had 19 violations, more than any other landfill in the state. TDEC investigated 49 odors and noxious smell complaints from 97 to 98. The next one is a rolling number. Out of 77.6 acres, and these acres can change a little bit, and they might not be exactly accurate, but they're pretty close. Only 10 of them have been closed, 10 and a half. 10 and a half acres are closed with a turf. It is up for debate whether this or not is the wrong application for closure of the turf. We're currently working with Pat Flood on trying to maybe keep that turf and work with other things. But right now, that turf, there's a big possibility that we may not be able to use that turf. And if we don't, we'll need to replace it with soil. If a private company had operated the landfill the way this one has been done, more than likely it would have closed. You can check ECS, which is located in Camden, Tennessee, as an example for a private landfill that was forced to close by TDEC. The St. B Class 3 landfill is currently under groundwater assessment, as I told you, because of leachate leaking into the groundwater site. The remediation cost is not included in that $40 million financial insurance, and the remediation costs currently are unknown. Woodlawn landfills have the similar problem where leachate has left the cells through stormwater and impacted Forks Creek. Again, we don't know the remediation or the impact of that because it has not been disclosed yet. In 2017, Bi-County chose to pay $44,000 in fines and settled with TDEC in a written order of 2013. When we pay the fines, we still have to fix the violations. They don't just go away when you pay them. And it was my understanding there was probably about 60 more in that part that we paid, which increases it to about 100. TDEC will issue another order in the coming days. Mr. Pat Flood is working on this. He's trying to correct some of our violations going back to 2013. He showed us a flow chart where some of them are coming off and things of that nature. And I'm not here to tell you that things aren't getting a little bit better at Bi-County, because they are. They are getting a little bit better, and some of the violations are going away. But we have a whole lot of violations and things that we need to correct before we even start thinking about flow control, in my opinion. 2016, we ran out of airspace, and we didn't run out of airspace. We were getting ready to run out of airspace, and we turned away solid waste from Robertson County. Brought that up already. In 2017, Bi-County came within about 60 days of running out of airspace. A small lateral expansion was completed. It gave us about 4 more months. We got some other cells permitted, which gave us some more years, and that's where we're at currently. If Bi-County was down to 2 months, again, Bi-County was down to about 2 months of realistic, unusable airspace. If MPG, in my opinion, if MPG, which you heard of them talking earlier, that process station hadn't occurred, we may have run out of airspace. We very easily could have. Bi-County has had over 4,000 yards of permitted airspace in November of 2017, which I just said gave us the extra years. Currently, there's about 3 million plus yards of airspace. Roughly, that leads you to about 6.5 to 7 years of usage before it fills up at 700 tons. It's at 700 tons per day. It's just a math equation is all it is. 5 acres has also been built. 23 acres are left to be built. There's a $60 million HDPE liner that must be installed at the cost of over about $100,000 per acre. Next one. Bi-County negotiated agreement with Williamson County. This is probably and this was done during the previous administrator's time. Currently, we're getting about $33 a ton from that. We renegotiated or something about 2 years ago, and there's all kinds of different speculation and stuff about that time. But basically what we did, it was presented, I think one was presented to where we could bring it to another site and maybe lose $1 or $2, and then I wasn't on the board then, but I did go to a lot of meetings. And the other one was that we could continue to take the trash, spend $22 a ton to have it hauled by MBI, and then at least we would salvage $11 of that revenue into our course, which sounded good at the time, but after you walked away, you kind of got to figure we are not making $11 a ton. It costs $25 to bury trash. $25. That again is a rolling number. It can go to 27, it's been at 29. You take in more trash, it goes down even lower. But then you fill up your airspace and it's gone once you fill it up. Doing simple math, if we're losing $14 a ton, because 33 minus 11, or 25 to bury it, minus 11 equals 14 a ton. At that rate, and if you do the math, and I've got it down here, we are at 500 tons per day, at 14 a loss, we're losing 150,000 per month, which equivalates out to about 1.8 million a year. I think we need to relook at that and re-examine that and figure out what we need to do to at least eliminate or minimize our loss that's occurring there. Bi-County has discussed the idea of taking more trash out of county, solid waste. In order to do this, they have to discount the rates. Again, you heard our tipping rate was 44. Williamson County's bringing it in at 33, or 41, I'm sorry. Williamson County's bringing it in at 33. Bi-County has discussed the idea of taking out more trash and solid waste. The point of the rates, solid waste will do that. Changes in Montgomery County and Stewart. Do we really want to take more trash? Do we really want to open up and take Nashville trash and become just like Middle Point, which is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee? as you heard before, the traffic would go instantly. You talk about grid, they're going to be traveling on our roads, they'll be tearing up our streets. Very last page, recycling used to be $19 a ton cardboard. It's gone down to $9. I've been asking about breaking down the figures since whenever and really still haven't got it. I'd like to know what our recycling costs are broken down, including the employee cost, the recycling cost, revenue, the cost of goods sold, all those others that are listed in there. Sludge, again, is a problem. I went over that, told you how it started and where during the flood and to possibly dry it out. We need to talk to our city partners about the possibility of helping with that and getting it out of our leachate problem, if you will. Bi-County is currently in a failed contract with a company that owns rights to the gas generated from the Class Lawn Woodfall. We have many compliance issues with them. We have implemented through that as well, creating our own gas system on the new cell, which is costing us a lot of money and gives us a little more authority to take care of it. But we have had severe problems with the gas generated from the other ones. And they did come to one of our meetings, and hopefully maybe that'll clear up, but we haven't had a report in that area. Bi-County Class 1 landfill has destroyed approximately 14 acres of wetlands at the Woodlawn site due to leachate, as we mentioned, getting into it. Across the street, there was property, it was mentioned that the property across the street that was purchased for cover soil would be used to mitigate this at my last meeting by replacing the wetlands there. However, the new land where the borrow pits was established was found to have wetlands of its own and not much cover soil. As originally thought, the mitigation to the wetlands on the property may not be sufficient. In addition, there may need to be mitigation done for the landfill site or at another site elsewhere in Montgomery County in order to help to correct the Fletcher's Creek. Possible future expansion areas of Class 1 landfill and Woodlawn have issues that have been dealt with before further expansions. The further expansion area lies in the area where the wetlands were removed. Assuming that mitigation efforts are successful, Bi-County must replace the soil of the previously removed from the operations at the current landfill. Roughly 3 feet of soil must be placed to get the site back to where there will be a 5-foot buffer between groundwater and the bottom of a landfill cell. The soil must come from off-site as there is no sufficient soil on the site. And the Class 4 landfill at Woodlawn is approximately 18 acres, and it's about 2/3 of the way full. It has a notice of violation for overfill and a notice of violation for failure to properly close in all requirements and timeframes. In the board meeting last Wednesday, as this was presented, the Bi-County board voted down flow control. Flow control is nothing more than a tax forcing haulers to bring their waste at whatever price, gets rid of free enterprise and competition, and it is nothing more than an additional tax to the taxpayers because the haulers, that price will just be spent over to the consumers and the taxpayers. I ask you to vote no for flow control, and if you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Gannon. Out of all these things you've listed, what caused all of them? All these violations, all that, what caused it? Did flow control cause it or did trash cause it?
Trash caused it.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight.
Well, I won't take as long, but it seems like we have a serious issue. I've been counting, and there's like 126 violations on this piece of paper from 2017 to 2018. That range from inadequate maintenance of run-on and run-off system. We have washout of solid waste, leachate observed at site, etc. Right? You can take a look at it and see all the various violations. But I've heard it mentioned by Mr. Harris and Commissioner Gannon in reference to the board voting it down. Now, if that's true, right, then that raises a serious moral and ethical concern on my end, you know, as a commissioner having to vote on this. You know, it shows that there's a lack of trust, the fact that this thing is even on our agenda. It shows that there's a lack of trust in our governing body of commissioners who sit on these committees, right? We have to trust them to be the eyes and ears, right, for some of these committees that we can't be on. So my question is, if it was voted down, why is it still on the agenda? 1. 2, can we get a copy of the minutes from that particular meeting so all the commissioners can see exactly how those committee members voted at that particular time. That being said, government pretty much have way too much control of things, and it sounds like these individuals are fighting for, competition, and having flow control, it would seem from my perspective, would cost them a lot of money and pretty much enable a monopoly for one particular organization. And with 126 violations pretty much on this paper, I don't think we can be what was quoted, the trash king of all of Tennessee, to have, individuals from Stewart, Houston, here, Robertson, and wherever else we're going to be taking trash from if we can't even fix 126 violations. Doesn't make any sense to me personally. So from a moral and ethical standpoint, I personally can't vote for this.
Well, Commissioner Knight, I will answer your first two questions about the matter being on the agenda. First and foremost, and I don't say this just to say it, but it's a fact, the chairman controls the agenda. I chose to bring it forward to the agenda, and I'll tell you why I did. We have a board that's made up of citizens and commissioners. There's three commissioners or three elected officials from Montgomery County that sit on that board. Myself, Commissioner Lewis, and Commissioner Gannon. We also have appointees on that board. We have one elected official from Stewart County. I don't think a regional board or an appointed board should determine financially what this body may have to consume. And that's the reason I brought it before this board. And lastly, out of that board, out of the 5 people that represent that board from Montgomery County, 3 of them voted in favor of it and 2 of them voted against it. I'm protecting Montgomery County. That's all I'm doing. So don't question my ethics. Thank you. Commissioner Beal.
I'm kind of afraid to ask now, but.
No, I just don't like somebody to question my ethics.
I understand. I feel the same way. I have a curiosity question, and then I also have a statement. It was brought up earlier about the director not being a county employee. I would like to know, is the director a county employee?
No.
Okay, so what is he an employee of?
By county, which is a quasi-government entity.
Okay. Well, to me, it's apparent that there's a lot going on there, and we need to look more into all these issues that just kind of came up. I mean, this is a lot. And I appreciate Commissioner Gannon bringing this to our attention because we need to figure something out on here. So I agree with the 2 previous speakers. I think we should vote this down because this is nothing more than putting a monopoly on the trash disposal business. The government can't compete with free market, so this is the way around it. So I will be voting no against this as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight, I'll come back to you. You've spoke once. Commissioner Pritchard.
Thank you. As Mr. Gannon, thank you so much for the amount of effort and information that you provided to us. And just for all of our owners over there, believe me, I doubt seriously if flow control is going to come up again. I think this is probably, hopefully, going to be voted out. And if it's voted out, we're looking forward to keeping you guys in business. Montgomery County is in the habit of encouraging business, not discouraging it. And it's free market business at that. So we'd like to keep you there. As far as the issues that we have over at Bi-County, and it is quasi-government, quoting you, sir, I do think that maybe there needs to be a little bit more intense look at correcting the issues. It seems to be a very expensive agency within our jurisdiction, and it might be something we need to correct. But I am against the flow control. I'd like to keep you guys going over there and keep this county in the way it is now. Very much pro-market, and so thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, I don't want to belabor the point. I'm one of those citizens that uses a private trash collection service. I appreciate what they do for our community. Back in 2017, I was against flow control, voted against it. I see nothing that's been presented tonight that makes me change that opinion. So I would encourage my fellow commissioners to vote against flow control tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight.
I want to thank you, Mayor, for establishing that clarification previously, but I want to clarify for myself as well. I wasn't questioning your ethics in particular. I was stating that it is morally and unethical for me to vote for this particular item on our agenda.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, Mayor. I just like to, it's more than garbage that created these violations. It's also improper management of the trash that's created them. Trash was the main cause, but it's also how we take care of those issues, and that's what's created the violations. Thank you. I just wanted to increase that answer.
Thank you. Well, Commissioner Leverett.
I just have a question with this larger number of violations. Do we have anything afterwards showing that they've been taken care of and closed out by TDEC, or is there a way to obtain that?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I don't know offhand, but we keep at every board meeting, we get a list of violations that, whether they're new violations, whether there have been violations that have been taken off the books or whatever. And I don't know, Mr. Graham's here. What is there maybe 20 on it now? Right now there's 0 outstanding violations. Thank you, sir.
Provided to the commission?
Yes, ma'am. I'll get Mr. Graham to provide that. Can you provide that list of violations? We'll get you a list.
Okay. And I don't know Mr. Graham, but I just want to know, how long has he been in leadership at Pike County?
A little over 2.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to address some of those violations, and really just to back up, since September of 2014, Pike County's been something that's been on my agenda, unfortunately, more so than I would have liked for it to be on my agenda. But one of the things that we were working in an environment of someone from TDEC who actually applied for the vacancy for the job, that wanted the job. And I think me and some members of the board went to TDEC and voiced our opinion on about the amount of scrutiny that was being placed on Pike County by this one individual who had applied for the job. We were told by TDEC he wouldn't be reviewing us anymore or checking us from compliance. That didn't happen, but finally that problems went away. And since that problems went away, I don't think our violations have been near what they are today. But this one individual could go out there and there would be one tire sitting in a location, and that individual would write a violation saying that we weren't managing our tires correctly. So the environment itself was not really conducive to somebody trying to work with the entity. Did we have some problems? Yes. Did the previous director make some bad decisions? Yes. Did he make some mistakes? Yes. And then I would also like to talk just a little bit about the surety bond that Mr. Gannon made reference to. As county mayor, I have to sign the surety bond for Montgomery County. Mr. Gannon has quoted a number, and in fact, TDEC has sent a number that I believe is $40,657,249.50. We have protested that to TDEC. The latest letter that we have signed committing financial assurance to the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation is a little over $18 million. Is that correct, Mr. Graham? That is correct. Thank you. And so I have a couple of questions, and then, well, I'll hold my questions for last. And y'all have to excuse me. I've got a little information I'd like to provide to you as well. In 1974, Pike County was formed, and it was formed by an interlocal agreement between Montgomery County and Stewart County. And I'd like to read to you what the very first whereas in that resolution stated. It says, whereas each party hereto recognizes the need for a solid waste collection and disposal system for its citizens and residents in accordance with public health requirements. That was in 1974. In 1994, Montgomery County, through an amendment to the interlocal agreement of 74, identified Bi-County as an authority. That's a very important date to remember. In 2010, Montgomery County passed a resolution authorizing flow control for Bi-County. Again, in May of 14, Montgomery County, this body, approved an amended interlocal agreement with absolutely zero changes to the flow control requirement. In 2016, Montgomery County, this body, the legislative body, approved an amendment to the interlocal agreement with no changes to flow control. Those changes, however, did remove some authority from the executive director and gave it back to the board of Bi-County. In 2017, airspace issues became apparent due to the lack of management oversight, and the board voted to direct trash from Bi-County that was coming from Franklin, Tennessee. Mr. Gannon has made a big, Mr. Gannon has chose to bring it out about this contract with Williamson County. Real briefly, it's a contract that was entered into that we cannot get out of. Quite frankly, Mr. Gannon's been on the board for 6 months and has suggested no changes to that contract. But we also diverted trash from Robertson County that was alluded to by one of our speakers. We were taking that trash at $14 a ton when our gate rate was probably somewhere around $21 a ton. And so that was in let me get back to where I was. That was in 2017. Also in 2017, and I'm not sure the date, but MPG was granted an expansion to an existing permit for a transfer station in Montgomery County. Montgomery County had no jurisdictional rights to oppose or support this expansion. We were actually informed of it by TDEC, and the board still assumed flow control was in place. In 2017, later that year, flow control became apparent that it was an issue when Queen City Disposal and Clarksville Disposal, or Waste Connections, started diverting trash from Montgomery County. To date, that diversion has cost Bi-County roughly $2.8 million. In 2017, Mr. Gannon gave me the date. In June, it was obvious that Bi-County's position in flow control was compromised. They presented a resolution establishing flow control to this body, and this body did not pass it. So in 2017, after that, in order to bring trash from outside of Bi-County's, in order not to bring trash outside of Bi-County's service area, Bi-County was somewhat forced to make a deal with MPG regarding their transfer trash, or go outside of this region or outside of Montgomery County and basically buy trash. I want to state this plainly. MPG had absolutely no mandate to enter into this agreement, and as was stated, they pay a fee for every ton that goes through there of trash that's generated in Montgomery County. The decision that the board made, in my opinion, was based on the legality of flow control and for the financial longevity of Bi-County. Despite what has been mentioned, I do not think we would have ran out of airspace. Could we have sued and cost everyone hundreds of thousands of dollars, but nobody would have won? To date, including the nominal fee that Bi-County pays, that MPG pays Bi-County, as I stated earlier, we've lost about $2.8 million in revenue. The agreement also stated that MPG would deliver 220 tons of trash from Nashville, being hauled by a different partnership to help offset the trash going out of Montgomery County with trash from Nashville. To date, we have received 0 tons from Nashville. In 2019, Airborne Disposal started diverting around 500 tons of trash per month from Bi-County, equating to approximately $20,000 a month in lost revenue. In January of 2019, the board directed Bi-County Executive Director to advise Airborne they were in violation of flow control. As I told Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Graham's letter to Mr. Blackwell was initiated by the board of Bi-County. The board also hired an outside counsel to pursue flow control limitations, including possible action against Airborne, which we chose not to take. In February 2019, the board was advised that in 1994, and if you recall, back in 1994, Montgomery County, through an amendment to the local agreement, the interlocal agreement, identified Bi-County as a regional waste authority. So the board was advised that 1994 documentation creating Bi-County as a regional authority was not submitted to the state of Tennessee for registration. Since that time, the original documentation that should have been submitted to the state in 1994 has been submitted and accepted by the state of Tennessee. Legal counsel advises Bi-County to have all local jurisdiction reaffirm flow control through another resolution, and that's why it's back here today. There was a small glitch in the armor, if you want to call it an armor, that's what the attorney called it, in flow control, and it happened in 1994 because one document was not registered with the state of Tennessee. And so, commissioners, Bi-County was created much like a water district. If you're familiar with what a water utility district is. Both of them are created by a legislative body. When created, each of them have a service area, each investing millions and millions of dollars in infrastructure. Now take away that service area and open it up to everyone. Ask the folks at one of our local utility districts what would happen. So we talked about preserving our airspace by not bringing in trash, but in the scenario I talked about taking away Bi-County service area, without flow control, the board can shrink the size of the organization, but we cannot shrink the financial liability, whether it be $40 million, as Mr. Gannon has alleged, or whether it is actually the $18 million that is actually in place. So in order to do that, we must generate revenue. To do that, we have to go outside of Montgomery County and basically buy trash. We become a commercial landfill. We start buying trash at cheaper rates and greater volumes, and guess what we're doing? We're using up our airspace that we have invested millions and millions and millions of dollars in creating to put garbage into it from another community. I know every person that spoke to us. I have a great amount of respect for each and every one of them. Several of them I've known a long time, but every one of them is in business to make a profit. My representation on the board at Bi-County is not to make a profit. My representation is all about ensuring that residents of Montgomery County, and in fact Stewart County, have a place to put their household waste for years and years to come at an affordable price. There was talk about the trend is to go to private landfills. Well, as I mentioned, Bi-County is one, and Mr. Gannon mentioned all of these landfills throughout the state of Tennessee that do not have flow control. There are very few municipally or governmental or quasi-governmentally owned landfills in the state of Tennessee. Bi-County is one of only a few. If you compare our rates to other government-run landfills, we are more than competitive. People can say we need to run Bi-County like a business. Well, it is a business, but it's a different type of business. Privately owned landfills don't provide convenience centers for their service areas, but the local governments do with taxpayers' dollars, and convenience centers are mandated by the state of Tennessee. Montgomery County does not pay a dime for these convenience centers. Also, private landfills are not mandated to reduce recyclables going in a landfill, but local governments are. So local governments pay through taxpayers' dollars to remove recyclables from your landfill. You have to meet a certain percent of your intake every year. I think it's about 25% has to be recyclables, has to be removed. Bi-County does that for Montgomery and Stewart County at zero cost to the taxpayers. They do it, it is a cost to the users, but it's not a cost to the taxpayers. Commissioners, lastly, and I'm gonna be quiet as well. I know each and every one of you probably been called or emailed about this numerous times, and I respect the viewpoints that have been outlined for those who see who may see this differently than I do. But I want to tell you, I'm not a big government person, but government needs to protect Bi-County, which we created. It's not something that just popped up on the screen. The legislative body of Montgomery County created it, and it was created, as was said in the very first whereas in 1974, for a place to put trash for years and years to come at an affordable price. And without flow control, we cannot guarantee that. Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I guess my biggest rebuttal is that article that I put in there about the Leaf Chronicle back in 2017, when this came before this august body, of which it did not pass. All these arguments that were made were the same arguments that were made. And guess what? The Bi-County landfill is still here in 2019, even when flow control didn't pass in 2017. We heard the same arguments then. Mr. Graham, does that mean that Pat Flood's not going to issue the order that he's written down, that he's getting ready to pass down since all our violations are done or we don't have any more? Because he was supposed to come back, and the fines that we have, the basic consensus here was that the fines that we have, we were going to be able to use to correct some of these deficiencies and things of that nature and not necessarily have to pay them all to TDEC.
Time frame of about 18 months that the mayor alluded to, where compliance oversight was ridiculously off the board.
Please, if you would, please step to the microphone.
I sure will. I'm sorry. I apologize. And first, let me put the community at rest. Leachate has not entered the water course. Okay, we do outfall inspections regularly at Bi-County, but if there's a leachate breakout, the state has the right and the power to note that on an inspection form that leachate breakout into stormwater, therefore into sedimentation pond and out into Blue Way. That's not true because we check the outfalls on that. So rest assured that product has not gotten into the groundwater. Okay, so that's a little bit different. But one violation such as a leachate breakout will show up as 4 or 5 violations on an inspection form. That's why that list is so great. That was imposed by, as the mayor said, somebody who attempted to take over Bi-County was not given that opportunity. That was addressed prior to my even taking over with TDEC, and I sat down with TDEC at the beginning of my term in January and kind of said, let's clean the slate and let's go forward positively. So we dealt with that for about 18 months and then got to a point where that waned off and that individual moved on. Yes, there is a draft right now of an order to Bi-County based upon those violations, but because and I don't want to presume to speak for Commissioner Flood, so don't misunderstand me. But Commissioner Flood, because of that compliance environment, has come forward and presented that as an agreed order, which basically says, understand, I'm under audit review here, and I've got to make sure that we address these NOVs and the things that you've been written up for, but I'm going to do so in a way that does not have negative impact on Bi-County and credits you for those positive things you had already planned in your budget to begin with. Sir? It basically is what you said. I just wanted to give some context to it so that everybody understood. 135 violations, or however many the number may be. Yes, all addressed. 90% of them really illegitimate to begin with. But rather than fight with TDEC while we're trying to get airspace, while we're trying to make compliance corrections from 2013, while we're trying to move forward in a limited airspace environment financially, That wasn't the fight to have. The fight was to continue to do our business environmentally, to continue to do our business as economically and efficiently as possible, and to know that that environment was going to move on as it has. Does that address that question?
Commissioner Pritchard.
Yes, Mayor, in reference to the history that you gave us on this issue, in 2010, did this body authorize flow control?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it did.
Okay, so for the past 7 years, from 2010 to 2017, flow control was in effect?
I think it, I hear people in the audience saying no. Legally, it was not, but I think everybody operated under those circumstances. Some people may have took garbage out that was generated in Montgomery or Stewart County, may have took it outside the county. Back in that date and time, I don't think it was monitored, to be quite frank. But I think everybody on the bi-county side assumed that it was in place.
Okay, so on the opposite side, the vendors, were they not aware of flow control for those 7 years? And that would include the different trash vendors that utilize the waste management.
I couldn't speak for them, but I don't think there was a tremendous amount of garbage going outside of Montgomery County that was generated in Montgomery County.
Okay. And then I had one other question. In 2017, then it came up to this board, to this committee here, and we then voted it down?
That's correct.
Okay, so we are no longer under flow control.
No. May I address that, please? What we brought up in 2017, Commissioner, was, again, a resolution to reaffirm the 2010 flow control resolutions. Now, that resolution to reaffirm it failed, but the 2010 resolutions were never removed. I don't think there was ever a need. First off, I don't know what drove the 2010 resolution for flow control. I wasn't in the business locally at that time, but apparently it was unanimous across all our municipalities that it needed to be instated, at least as a municipal responsibility to manage the solid waste system. It never had to be even addressed, and I don't know if the commercial carriers would support this or not. I believe they would, because it was always a competitive environment. Bi-county always worked in a competitive environment, and the rates were very good. You heard $24, $22 a ton and that type of thing, and that's very true. But then we got into a position where we had to limit airspace and bring volume down, and there's a thread in this community that thinks that Bi-county should be small. I don't disagree with that. As director of Bi-county, I can work on either side of the flow control issue. What I think is important to understand, though, is that if Bi-county does not have flow control and needs to become competitive, then yes, rates have to come down. And I think it's certainly Bi-county could go back into the same type of financial position it was in before airspace was a challenge, and airspace is no longer a challenge. There's actually 11 years and 8 months of Class 1 airspace available today, as reported to TDEC, and that's just math. But if we're to go to that rate, and can Bi-county operate more economically? Sure, any entity can. And expenses have gone down every quarter at Bi-county since I've been there, and will continue to go down. But if you reduce the rate, the gate rate of revenue coming across the scales, then you obviously have to increase your volume to maintain fixed cost revenues. And I also hear in here, let's lower the rate, but let's decrease the volume. Mathematically, that doesn't work for your solid waste system. You can't continue to provide the same services by reducing your revenues by 35%. Sure, we can reduce expenses, but 35%? No, probably not and provide the same services. And yes, we are mandated to provide the convenience centers, 17 total in the community as well. We do the education outreach. We do a ton of different things that cause financial burden to Bi-county as part of a solid waste system, not just burying trash on the landfill. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going against anything that Bi-county does.
Yes,
my question is that we have vendors who, it seems, some have been picked on for violating flow control. Some have not even known that they were under flow control. And here we are sitting in this chamber tonight, not knowing whether or not flow control is still in existence at this point or not. The whole issue about this is the fact, is there flow control? You asked us to reaffirm, so we didn't reaffirm, but does that mean the previous agreement from 2010 is still in existence?
Let me, David, if I could answer that. Based on legal counsel advised the Bi-County Board to come back before the legislative bodies to reaffirm the 2014 and the 2010. Legal counsel has advised that once we file with the state and it's accepted by the state, which has happened, that we may have an argument to be able to enforce flow control, but it's a legal argument that, quite frankly, we're going to spend a lot of money, and the opposition's going to spend a lot of money, and somebody's going to win or lose. So the simple and logical thing to do, if flow control is what we're going to do, is to bring it back to this body to reaffirm it, and that's what's before you tonight. Commissioner Knight.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but based off of all the information being provided, Bi-County encompasses the governing bodies of Stewart, Houston, Montgomery, and Robertson County?
No, sir. Bi-County is strictly an interlocal agreement between Stewart and Montgomery counties.
So it's between Stewart and Montgomery County?
Yes, sir.
So in order for flow control to be 100% viable, which I think it's hitting on what Commissioner Pritchett was trying to say, in order for flow control to be an actual viable thing, right, you would need a yes or a thumbs up or a high five or what have you from Stewart and Houston County, yes? Or Stewart and Montgomery County, correct?
And we'd also approach the city of Dover, the city of Clarksville as well, yes, sir.
And that's the reason why we're reaffirming, correct?
The reason why we're reaffirming
Yes,
it is based
yes.
upon council's guidance.
So it's based on council's guidance because it wasn't affirmed to begin with, yes or no?
No, sir.
So it was affirmed before?
It was not affirmed in 2017. When are you?
Right, so if
Yes,
it
sir.
wasn't affirmed in 2017,
Correct.
where's the reaffirming coming from?
The reaffirming is coming from the fact that we're established as a solid waste authority now.
Okay,
So it should be reaffirmed post that establishment.
Great, going back to my original question. So in order for flow control to be a viable thing, you would need input from Stewart and Montgomery County, yes or no? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, all right.
You could exercise flow control in Montgomery County, and Stewart County choose not to exercise.
Okay,
flow
so we're asking Stewart and everybody else to come to us, but we're not taking their input, yes or no?
No, Stewart County and the city of Dover would have the option to implement flow control if they chose to.
Okay.
We would not be dictating what happens to Stewart County's trash. It would only be for Montgomery County.
Okay.
The regional authority, the power that they've given is to allow each municipality and local government to institute flow control on their own. So it's not a wide encompassing, everybody's got to do it. It's community by community. Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I got two questions. My first question is, what is the quarterly bill that all the residents receive for like roughly $15 a month? What is that for?
Yes, sir. That's a solid waste user fee that's been charged at Bi-County for since 1997, I believe that was instituted. Yes, sir.
So that's in addition to the fee that the haulers pay?
Yeah, but what that does, though, is it allows me to provide for those users to be able to go into convenience centers or come to the landfill and not have to gate them for that trash at those facilities. Because then we'd have to bond operators and we'd have cash out there in some of our outlying areas. You don't want to do that. So it provides for that. It was actually instituted just to assist with the solid waste management plan of Bi-County.
And do you think that it would be a better idea, instead of trying to monopolize this, to maybe just lower the rates for the haulers and actually be competitive?
I think, again, as I said a while ago, I can operate on both sides of that fence. That's fine either way. But keep in mind that if we go back, and keep in mind that prior to airspace issues, we were 1,200 to 1,500 tons a day at $22, $23 a ton. and that was to meet fixed costs and to provide the service we provide. If we go back into competition and get back to that rate, then we again go to those volumes. And that's where I hear the contradiction here, is that be competitive, lower your rate, bring in less trash. Are there economic efficiencies that can help get to that? Sure, but not to that level. No, sir.
Well, the argument seems to be that we need more trash. So if we need more trash, why don't we lower the rate to get more trash?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So that these haulers don't have to go somewhere else.
But we also
They can just
hear
do
in
it
this
here.
community that we don't want more trash, that we're giving away airspace and that type of thing. That's, as the director, I'm just here to follow the will of the commission, the will of the board of directors. So I want to find out which side of that fence we're walking on.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Leverett?
Just have a quick question as to, Commissioner Gannon brought up that there are no counties in Montgomery County currently operating under flow control. Can anybody explain that? If this was to pass, why would we be the first one? And do you know why, or the other reason why other counties are not doing so? And then I think Commissioner Knight addressed my next question, which was what was Stewart County's position on this flow control?
Stewart County has not stated a position yet, although the mayor is a part of our board and was opposed to it, as full transparency there. I know that Sevier County does practice flow control. We heard a little bit about them in here, but they do practice and enforce flow control. It's a challenge for them. Out of state, I was in Huntsville this week, and they absolutely mandate flow control because they do a waste to energy piece. And without that, they can't look at future technologies. They can't get bonded unless they have a guaranteed financial foundation to work off of. So I thought that was an interesting approach as we look to the future. Again, I think if you want to minimize the amount of waste you come in, then you obviously have to control your rate and control your volume. If you want to go back into a competitive spirit, that's fine, but your volume drives up on that.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for being here.
Sure,
and,
yes, sir.
We're kind of throwing some pointed questions at you. I appreciate you.
I would expect
standing
no
up
less
and
in this
taking it.
community, sir. Thank you.
One question that I've asked numerous times when Commissioner Gannon started attending the Bi-County meetings, I did as well.
Yes, sir.
And that was a time when Bi-County was very stressed. I appreciate you taking over leadership and trying to steer the ship through some difficult times.
Thank you, sir.
I do. The one question I've asked numerous times, and I'm kind of alarmed that I've never gotten an answer, and that question is that contract with Franklin.
Yes, sir.
Every time I ask this question, I get told this one answer. It's an unbreakable contract. We can't get out of it.
Yes, sir.
In my opinion, there's only one contract you can't get out of. That's a deal with the devil.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
And you're telling me that's what we did? We sold our soul to the city of Franklin? Is that what you're telling me?
Let me tell you, because there's a lot of things that have been said tonight that aren't based on a whole lot of truth. Okay, a Franklin contract was put into place to bring Williamson County and the city of Franklin trash to Bi-County for disposal. There is no out for that for Bi-County. That is a true statement.
How can we, sorry to interrupt, but how can we sign a contract without an out? You're telling me.
Sir, I wasn't here at the formation of that contract.
It's the first contract that's ever been signed that we cannot break. What's the penalty if we break it?
There are two in effect now that I've found since I got there. But so we took that contract and realizing limitations, the legal challenge. Sure, you can break any contract if you're willing to suffer the legal and the financial challenge of that. So we brought that before the board with the different options to manage the Franklin contract. And the board and myself kind of led it to the best position we could put it in by our judgment. And that was a 12-month process probably for us to get to that solution with legal counsel, full oversight and full view and everything else, sir.
In my opinion, looking at the 25,000 feet view of the situation.
Yes, sir.
It's not about flow control at all. It's about the contract we signed with Franklin that's causing a lot of our issues. That's the reason that Bi-County would like to implement flow control.
No, sir. I don't agree. I believe that's a constituent or a piece to it. But no, sir, I disagree that is why, sir. No.
I totally disagree. When you are charging below market prices to an municipality entity to take their trash, you're causing an imposition on the residents of Montgomery and Stewart County.
Yes, sir.
You're causing them to pay more. And also, you're causing the private haulers that are based here to have to pay no more. And I'm going to tell you, I have a major, major problem with that.
Okay,
and
sir.
I've had a major problem with that ever since I came on the commission.
Yes, sir.
And we've never been given the information what it would cost us to break that contract. And I think that's something we need to know.
Okay, sir.
Well, I've talked to both legal counsel for Bi-County and legal counsel for Montgomery County, and we can't get out of the contract. The contract has no severability clause for Montgomery County.
How did the board allow that to happen?
I cannot answer that, Commissioner Harper. I cannot answer that.
I mean,
I agree with 90% of what you just said, but I don't understand it either. I don't understand it either. I don't know why we did it in the first place, but that decision, I think, got brought to this commission at some point in time. I'm not going to promise that, but I don't know.
You know, that makes me pretty emotional. You know.
Sit on the Bi-County board since 2014. Yeah, and talk about it almost every time we go there. Yeah. But I don't think it has any impact on flow control.
I beg to differ, but you know, I don't want us to sit here for another hour talking about it, so I'm going to end mine.
Commissioner Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. My machine went out. Doesn't like me, I guess. I guess I overloaded it. I just have one more question for Director Graham, and then I'd like to make a few comments. Director Graham, are you saying that there have been no violations for leachate going into the water system?
No, sir, I didn't say that at all. The state has written us violations for leachate going into the water system. I am saying that we test the outfalls regularly, and that product never hits the water system.
Thought you said last week that we'd taken sample cores and you saw that it was in there as well.
No, sir, I never said
Okay.
that. If you remember, my operations director, Randy Great, actually addressed this directly.
So you're saying TDEC was wrong on the leachate entering the water systems?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're saying TDEC is incorrect?
I'm saying that that product did not get into the water system. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
A few comments. Going back to Bi-County having flow control, I believe that the 1991 Solid Waste Act pretty much said that they do not. Nobody is saying to take a whole lot of garbage and go prices. What we're saying in there, and why the board voted it down, is because they want to maintain Bi-County landfill and have it here for our grandchildren and children and all as well. We don't want to start taking in a bunch of Nashville trash or whatever. We want to, our revenues are sufficient at this point in time, which, as we had been told, we're profitable every month. We just want to manage costs a little better. And that's one of the reasons why we don't vote for flow control, which again, we think is another tax on the people. It forces you to have to take it there. We need to work within our means. If flow control was enforced, again, we would have never been here in 17 and we would not be here right now. And we get a user fee, somebody talked about before, in the convenience centers. That user fee goes to help with those. And again, a lot of these arguments were back in 17, and again, it didn't pass. I got a whole lot of other stuff for later that we'll talk about maybe next Monday.
Commissioner Knight.
I want to say thank you, Director Graham, for taking the opportunity to take our questions. But I have one other question as well. When do you think we'll be able to see in writing remediation of the 126 violations that are on this form?
I can tell you that at my last board meeting, the solid waste director for the state of Tennessee was there, spoke before the entire board, and made that claim himself.
That's not what I asked.
Yes, sir. I can provide you with a formal statement that I would write to you showing that those no longer exist.
Great.
Yes, sir. They stay on that list until they roll off by time, not by rolling off by being addressed.
Can you have that before the next commission meeting?
Oh, yes, sir. I can have that to you this week.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions regarding 1944?
May I make one more statement before we move on from this,
Sure.
Mayor? First off, I'd like to say, I know sometimes I come across as confrontational. It's just because I care about what I'm doing. And if I came that way to you, Chris, I apologize. I do not mean to be confrontational. I'm just trying to do what's right for Bi-County. Trying to show both sides to my board, both sides to the community. Let's determine how to go forward properly. So I have to apologize to you if you took it that way. It wasn't meant that way. Secondly, a lot of things were said tonight that maybe put a lot of fear in people's minds. A lot of them aren't based in fact. My door is wide open. If anybody would like to meet with me individually as a group, talk through different points, different challenges, I would more than welcome that opportunity. Transparency has always been important to Bi-County. That's why the Director of Solid Waste for TDEC comes to my board meeting every month, so I can ensure we have that transparency across the state, across Bi-County, and across this community. So that being said, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. What's your phone number? My phone number? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Beal?
Quick question. Is there a way that we can get a copy of that Franklin contract?
Sure.
So can I get that along with the report that Commissioner Knight's getting, and then also a copy of last week's minutes?
We'll provide it to all the commissioners.
I will provide that to all the commissioners by the end of this week. Fair? Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioners, it's 20 minutes after 8. I'm gonna, if y'all want to take a little quick break, but when we come back, we're gonna take a 7-minute recess and we're gonna put the timer on. Hopefully that'll let everybody do whatever they need to do. But I'm not gonna take this item off the floor. I really do not want to come in here next Monday night and debate this for 2 hours. I think we need to come in here and vote. So I would encourage you, if you have something else to say about this matter or have questions, to please go ahead and do that when we come back in. We're in recess for 7 minutes. your voice is heard and at our formal session, let's just vote on matters instead of staying in here 2 hours. Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. I just got one small point, and this is my understanding. And I guess we need to figure out if it's actually correct, but I believe it's correct. My understanding of the vote on flow control is that it's got to be all or none. In other words, let's just say the board voted it in. Let's just say that they did. The city of Clarksville, the county of Clarksville, Stewart City and county all have to vote in favor of it. If one of them does not vote, then it doesn't get enacted. Same concept. If the board votes against it, of by county as well, regardless of how the counties vote, it won't have any teeth. That's my understanding of it. I will get the exact information later and pass that on. Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchard?
One question, if flow control was in effect for 7 years, from 2010 2017, but it wasn't enforced, and it's supposedly, in essence, to be something that can increase revenue flow, how could we ignore enforcing something that makes money?
I don't think there was a lack of ignoring it. I don't think this situation came to a head until there was an issue with the airspace by county. And when that issue came to the forefront, there was trash that had to be diverted, and some people expanded a permit for a transfer station to allow them to take garbage as well. And so I don't know exactly what all they could have took under their old permit, but I know they had to have a covered area for trash. They couldn't stay on the floor so many hours. I don't remember all the details, but until there became an airspace issue, as I said earlier, I think some trash probably was going out of Montgomery County, but I don't think it was a lot. I think if we instituted flow control tomorrow, there'd still be some renegade loads that went out of Montgomery County. It's not that we're going to put GPS units on everybody's garbage trucks and follow them everywhere, but I think that's the reason.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to talk about flow control. I'm going to talk about the Bi-County landfill just real quick about Mr. Graham and his operation. First off, before you make a decision on what state the landfill is in, you should call Mr. Graham and go out there and take a tour and see what they have to do every day. I look for this. This is what the state gave us last month as far as the printout of what's going on out at the landfill. And you'll see, just real quick at the top, there's 3 things in green. That was the only thing the state found wrong, and they have been fixed. So all the other stuff, and if you go back and look from 2017 when Mr. Graham took over up till now, all the stuff that was going on and all they've gone through to get the landfill back to where it needs to be, it's a tremendous job, a tremendous job. So I asked you to call Mr. Graham and go out there and look at that operation and look what his men and women have to go through every day to keep that landfill running. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Leverett.
Yes, I just have thank you, Mayor, another question about the vendors. I don't think we're talking about them enough in this conversation. If flow control, I don't know, goes through, or even if it doesn't, how do we make an amicable relationship with our vendors? What's that relationship going to look like? Maybe that's something, Mr. Graham, I don't know if he's still here. Oh, okay.
If the carriers fail this both economically and environmentally.
Okay.
With or without flow control, it will.
Okay, that was my concern, was for the vendors.
I think you ask a really good question, Commissioner Smith. I'll get you in just a second. You know, since I've been on the board at Bi-County, I've seen our gate rate, and that's what we charge per ton. It's kind of gone all kinds of places, and a lot of it has been discounted based on the volumes that you bring to Bi-County to encourage the bigger haulers to come there. But I've had a vendor tell me that we need to raise our gate rates. And our gate rate was at 41, David?
41 now, volume discount to 36 and to 33.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
I've been a big watcher of Bi-County for several years, even before I was on the commission. And I commend Mr. Graham for everything he's done in the last couple of years. But I also see the side of our vendors over here, because I'm all about free market. And their ability to go and find competitive rates only forces Bi-County to be better. It always has. That's the way free market works, is you force all of the main people to better themselves and provide a better product and a better rate in order to maintain their business. I see it every day as a businessman. You know, I'm forced to price out things in a way that works for everybody. I would say that the director said he can work without flow control. That tells us that he can work without it. Would it help him if he had it? Yes, but he can work without it. And I think Bi-County's main focus needs to be on being the best product available for Montgomery County. I do think the Franklin deal has really hurt us. I think we really need to take a look at what our legal fees and fines would be to get out of that deal. No contract is unbreakable by any means. That one was a sore spot on me when we first entered that deal. Everybody could see that it was a South deal for Montgomery County. We need to look at that seriously over the next month or two and see what we can do to get out of that. And I think getting out of that contract would do more for Bi-County than implementing flow control. Just my personal opinion.
And Commissioner Smith, I appreciate your opinion. And just two things. Bi-County's not a private landfill. And I think anybody that opens a private landfill, they have one goal in mind. It's to fill it up as quick as they can and make as much money as they can and get out of there. Bi-County was not created for that purpose. And so I think that's a huge difference. But I respect your comments, but I think that's a huge difference, because maintaining airspace or a place to put garbage for our community for years and years to come, to me, should be one of the top priorities. And the second one is to do it in an affordable manner to our residents. Commissioner, do you care if he speaks back? Yeah.
I got one question back on that. Then why did we make a Franklin deal? If our job was not to make money and to fill up the airspace as fast as possible, we should have never made a Franklin deal or to take trash outside of Montgomery and Stewart County.
I agree with you 110%. Commissioner Beal?
I'm going to kind of reiterate what Commissioner Smith just said. We keep talking about how great the landfill is doing, and I'm not disputing that. But think about what we're being asked to do here. We're basically saying, oh yeah, they're doing so well, but they're doing so well that they want us to approve a forced monopoly on trash disposal. If it's doing that well, why do we have to do that? Why not be competitive and charge a lower rate to get more trash? That's the question that I still have yet to get answered.
No, sir. I think it's still on. Well, that is.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So, but the argument though is that we need more trash. So how can the argument be we need more trash, but yet we're worried about airspace? So which one is it? Which one is it?
I don't think the argument is that we need more trash. I think the argument is that we have an area that the trash that's generated in this area will make Bi-County viable and make it be able to continue to operate and provide airspace for our residents for years and years to come. If we get in the competitive market, we have to go buy trash. As Mr. Graham said, we have to pay for it at a lower price and more volume. I mean, and if that's what it comes to, then Bi-County's going to have a couple of choices to make. They're going to have to reduce services to eliminate some expenses, but I don't know how much expenses they can eliminate. And so they're going to have to make a choice. Maybe the choice is to sell it. Maybe the choice is to sell it and let a private owner operate it. And then what's going to happen is they're going to put as much trash in it as quick as they can. They're going to fill it up, and they're going to close it, and they're going to walk away. Or what happened with the ECD landfill or whatever, the private operator just walked away, and the state had to come in, or is having to come in and close it. And I'm not saying anybody would do that, but they're in the, with all due respect, they're in the business to make money. Bi-County's not in the business to make money.
I'm not on again.
You're back on.
So, okay, so with that being said, it costs $25 per ton, correct? I heard that number? Right, so why are we charging $41 a ton if we're not in the business to make money?
You have convenience centers that are mandated by the state that you have to pay for, and the user fees don't pay for that. You have recyclables that you have to eliminate from your landfill. Taxpayers don't pay for that. Bi-County pays for that.
So what are the user fees for then?
Well, they go for the operation of the landfill. Not only is a user fee, it comes nowhere close to paying for the convenience centers. I can tell you that. So some of it goes into the operation of the landfill. I mean, a convenience center it's that. But think of the expenses that go along with it. I mean, you have to have a piece of property. You have to maintain the piece of property. You have to have dumpsters there. A great service that we provide that I wish was better is you can get rid of recyclables there. So they have all the different containers for magazines, for glass, metals, all of those things. So if a private person wants to haul their stuff there, they can do that. But they are very costly to operate, but we're required to have them.
So is all of that the $25 a ton that it costs?
The $25 a ton is a figure that Commissioner Gannon used, a cost to bury. And he said that cost could range anywhere from $25 to $29. I think Mr. Graham has said that may be accurate depending on the volume, but if you bring in more volume, your cost to bury goes down because you're putting more volume in it. But when you're putting more volume in it, you're taking up more airspace.
So can I ask Mr. Graham, what's the actual cost per ton then?
Again, that will variate from month to month based upon revenue to expense.
Mr. Graham, excuse me. The cost per ton for what? And I don't mean to be ugly, but...
That the haulers are paying to dump the trash.
Okay. Mr. Graham?
Cost per ton?
Yes.
That the haulers are paying to haul the trash.
I want to know how much per ton does it cost the entire organization? That's what I'm trying to find out. How much per ton?
We run like a nonprofit right now. Our expenses equal our revenues.
So it cost us $25, but we're charging $41, but we're breaking even.
Correct. It costs us $21 to manage and bury the Class 1 trash. We don't incorporate the operation of convenience centers into that cost. No, sir. That's the cost to bury that trash.
I'm asking
if you
for...
take the whole solid waste system, it costs $41 a ton to run.
Okay, so you're telling me that all operational expenses, everything bottom line, it cost us $41 per ton.
No, see, you can't, you're trying to box it into a hole.
No, I'm
trying
trying,
do that
I'm trying
we
to.
have user fee revenue, right?
Okay.
We have some recyclable revenue. We have tipping rate. on Class 1. We have tipping rate on Class 3. We have tipping rate on Class 4. That's all the sources of income that go into generating the revenues necessary to run the solid waste system.
Okay, so is there a simple answer to my question? How much does it cost? All the expenses that this organization has, how much, if you break it down by ton, how much does it cost?
Well, I can't break it down by ton because...
But we charge per ton.
I do charge per ton for Class 1. I charge per yard for Class 3, 4. User fee is a completely separate piece. So you can't really take all the charges or all the costs of Bi-County and apply it to the Class 1 landfill, you know?
But Bi-County, okay, so Bi-County is a single organization. I assume
It is.
you have one set of financial reports.
We do.
Okay, so I'm asking for that number. How much does it cost altogether, your expenses versus your income?
And I could pull out my budget. It sits at about 15.5 million, both sides.
But we're breaking even.
Yes, sir, very close. We make a profit from time to time, as I spoke to Commissioner Gann in our last board meeting, but we run about like a nonprofit. Try to.
Okay, so can we afford to drop the rate that these guys are paying?
If we do, yes, we can, but it would lead to an increase in volumes.
An increase in what?
Volume.
Right, but the argument was we need more trash.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The argument was that we need more trash, right?
They are going to,
The argument was that we need more trash. We need more trash in order to get more money.
if we drop rate, yes, sir.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Smith?
I just got to go back to the same thing. It's kind of I understand you're operating at almost zero profit, but we can't ask these guys as vendors in a free market to come here, bring us this trash, but we're still able to take trash from an outside entity, and we're supposedly worried about our airspace. If you get rid of the airspace or get rid of the Franklin deal and come back and then review this, that would be one thing. But with the Franklin deal in place, you're saying do as I say, not as I do. We're bringing in trash from an outside county at a terrible rate, and we're passing the buck on to these guys when they bring it to our county stuff to our county, keep it here. We can't ask them to do that. If you get rid of the Franklin deal and then you brought this back to the table with a reasonable rate for the vendors, I could see that 100%. But at the moment, the way it sits, I don't see it being possible.
Commissioner Knight?
Just wanted to ask and kind of caveat on what Commissioner Beal was saying. Is there an average cost per ton, considering that, you know, everything changes, it's not definitively 41?
We look at Class 1 cost to bury as opposed to Class 1 revenue. So we try to put apples to apples. 25, 26 a ton at current volume is about what our costs are.
Okay, so you have a monthly cost expenditure spreadsheet or financials that you have that you can probably provide to us so that we can see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that as well.
Okay, I'll check with my board for release. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a point of information. Everybody's talking about convenience centers. When we went through this exercise in 2017, June of 2017, pretty much was said that the convenience centers cost us about $1 million to run, and that we were generating about $3.5 million off the user's fees, was my understanding from the last report, especially we got for 2017. And I believe Director Graham was the one that kind of gave us those.
I don't know where the $1 million came from. It's more like 4.5 million. I'm interested to know where you got that 1 million.
Came from you.
Thank you, sir. Not from me. No, sir.
No other questions? All right, 1945, a resolution to amend the budget of the Montgomery County Emergency Medical Services for the purchase of furniture to replace damaged or dilapidated furniture. Any questions regarding 1945? 1946 is a resolution to appropriate funds from the e-citation Special Revenue Fund for the purchase of e-citation readers and printers. Any questions? Resolution 1947, resolution to amend the Sheriff's Office budget to employ 2 additional regular full-time deputy sheriffs to staff the additional security checkpoint at the entrance of the court centers. Are there any questions? Commissioner Leverett?
If we can maybe have Sheriff Fuson just give, at least for my comfort, just an additional breakdown of this resolution, if he can, if he's still here.
Chief Smith's here.
Okay.
I think Deputy Chief Smith could probably do it.
This is pursuant to finishing up the renovation of the court center. The Court Security Committee, which composed of the district attorney, the presiding judge, and sheriff, I think the clerks, made a recommendation to improve security access to the building. That was to add another security lane. This body funded the additional security lanes, so there's 3 security lanes, and these are 2 deputies to staff that lane. And there's going to be some unspent monies in this year's budget due to a lot of vacancies that we've had trying to hire people. So our existing budget will absorb the cost to get those deputies in place and to equip them in this fiscal year. And so that will be an additional cost for next fiscal year.
Spending additional money. There's no, you're not asking for new money. This
No,
is
ma'am,
just
not this year. The resolution is essentially taking some money to purchase the equipment, like the body armor, the weapon, the taser, uniforms, things like that that they need to go to work.
Okay. I just wanted an explanation. Thank you.
Chief, I have a question. Do you know what the fiscal impact is next year?
In the resolution, I think it was, if they had the family plan medical, it would be about $121,000. That includes benefits.
Okay.
If they had the single insurance, that'd be about $14,000 less.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Resolution 19, Commissioner Bryant?
I have a question. When I looked through the agenda, I think it was like $175,000 total. That included the salary plus all the insurance. Is that existing amount of money in this year's budget?
No, ma'am. For the full fiscal year in your resolution, there are salaries and benefits listed there, totaling about $121,000. That's the worst case scenario of what the benefit package would cost to employ 2 full-time deputies.
And the bracket showed like $12,000 some odd dollars you had in existing revenue for that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Because of vacancies in the deputy's salary line, that's what that first column is. We've had vacancies, so there's some money that will go unspent. What this resolution does is basically takes that money out of there and then puts it into the line for equipment and uniforms, by the radio, so we can employ the deputies this year.
So you have the salary money. You just don't have the equipment money. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We've got equipment money in the salary line, so there's no new money. You're just amending the budget to take out of over here and put over here.
Okay.
Any other questions of Chief Smith? Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 19-4A is a resolution to urge the General Assembly to adopt an equitable distribution of local sales tax revenue from out-of-state sellers. Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in support of, actually, this was on our legislative liaison agenda, and that's actually the item that I worked on myself. So personally, I would appreciate your support on this item.
Commissioner Beal.
Can we just get a very quick summary of what this is asking?
There was a Supreme Court decision that allowed states to charge sales tax to out-of-state vendors. And the state of Tennessee has been struggling with what to do with those revenues or whether to charge for those revenues. And this is asking that the distribution of those sales tax revenues from out-of-state sellers be equitably distributed, meaning that if you buy something inside the city limits of Clarksville, the sales tax revenue for the local government goes to the city of Clarksville. If you buy something outside the city limits in the county, that distribution goes to Montgomery County. And so what the resolution is urging, that if you order something from an out-of-state vendor and it's shipped to your address and you lived outside the city limits of Clarksville, that sales tax revenue would go to Montgomery County. Any other questions? Resolution 1949 is a resolution adopting the revised rules of procedures for filling of vacancies by the county legislative body. Any questions? Resolution 19410 is a resolution to amend Animal Care and Control Committee membership and dangerous dog appeal quorum requirements. Are there any questions? Commissioner Beal?
This is not a question from me, it's a question from one of my constituents in my town hall. They asked, why does the mayor need to be a voting member of this committee?
To be quite honest, I really don't want to be. The problem is we can't get a quorum. That's the only reason, is to allow the mayor, whomever he or she may be, to be a voting member so we could get a quorum and have our meetings.
So how many members are there?
Shelley, 7.
So in order to meet a quorum, we need 4, so we have to make him a voting member. And these are all commission members? Not all of them? Okay, I'm just asking, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Just as a point of clarification, I was on the Animal Control Committee for several years. I am now on the Animal Control Ad Hoc Committee, and I can tell you right now that this is needed. We have, especially on dangerous dog, where you have people whose dog has been deemed dangerous by the Animal Control Care and Control organization, and it's quite costly, the procedure that you have to go to have your dog on the dangerous dog list. So when these people request a hearing to have their dog removed from the list, they are basically in a grace period where they're not in compliance, and they're hoping that they will not be on the dangerous dog list where they would have to expend this money. Meanwhile, if the dog belongs on the dangerous dog list and these people are in this grace period and they're out of compliance, then you run the risk of there being another incident. So it's really a necessity that we get this vote done as soon as possible. And if we have to put it off week after week after week because we have people who can't be there, it really becomes an issue. So I can tell you from personal experience, this is necessary. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
I would touch just a little bit on Commissioner Johnson's argument there. Same thing. This is a committee that these people show up and you're basically like a judge and jury for their dangerous dog case while they try to appeal it. And it is long and drawn out. I just attended my first one last month and we were there for 3.5 hours for 3 cases. So I would just recommend that we do this so that no matter what happens, we can at least hopefully get a quorum and offer these people the opportunity to do what they were there to be, to have done and not have to reschedule.
Commissioner Leverett?
Do we have some parameters that we can put in place for the members of the committee so that they can show up to the meetings?
That's been a topic that's been debated through our rules committee several times, and I don't know how the commission polices itself, to be quite honest.
So is this something that needs to go back to the rules committee maybe, to say after so many meetings, you're no longer a member of this committee?
There is that criteria.
Okay.
And unfortunately, people have been removed from committees because of it.
Okay, I'm just concerned about people, if they're not showing up, then find something else for them to do. Maybe they shouldn't be a part of this, but okay, I understand. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight?
I'll be there. Hey, I'm excited. First meeting.
What you said's recorded, so I'll be waiting on you. Commissioner Bill?
I want to echo kind of what Commissioner Leverett said, and I would like to see something happen to where if they're not going to show up to the committee meetings, maybe they shouldn't be on the committee. I mean, that's all I'm saying. So let's do something about it.
Commissioner Tangi Smith is sitting right in front of you, and I think she's chair of the Rules Committee, so I guess she's heard you. But I would gladly, if someone would like to amend this for it to be somebody else, Mr. Harper, would you like to take it?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
just messing with you.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it. The Rules Committee, we already have guidelines to enforce the attendance on committee meetings. There's no need for us to put anything new in place. All we have to do is that committee chair, whoever's the chair of that committee, needs to enforce those rules. That's all that has to happen. So the committee chairs have to do their job.
It's being enforced.
Okay.
I can assure you.
Good deal. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
You're making me break my streak. I was being quiet. I really was. But just for clarification, though, I mean, this is a long, tedious committee to be on. It is a lot of work, and it drags on, and it's just a lot. It just really is. The plate just overflows, and you're only allowed so many commissioners on the committee itself, and you have doctors and people from the Humane Society, and you have people from the police department and people from the sheriff's office. I mean, these people have schedules. These people have events that come up in their lives. There are emergencies that happen in all of our lives, and it's just, and then you have people who just don't want to come because it's hard. And that's what plays into it. And that's why, you know, you say, well, we'll just replace them with someone else. Well, it's not always that easy to find someone else. So, I mean, that's the solution that we came up with on the Rules Committee was in order to, for lack of a better idea of going out and grabbing someone and dragging them into the meeting and tying them to the chair, is to change the procedure so that we can work with what we have, so we can get the work done with the people who actually show up instead of waiting for people to be there so that we can accomplish the goal. Thank you.
Commissioner Beal?
And that sounds awesome, but on the side, why don't we change some rules so that we have committee members that actually show up?
Well, the rule is if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, the chair is supposed to notify the mayor, and the mayors or the chairs to remove the person from the committee, and we've been following that rule. Any other questions on 19-410? All right, school liaison report, Commissioner Harper.
In the instance of brevity, can we just do this next week? Would that be all right?
Sure, if you promise not to talk about flow control for 2 hours.
I promise I will not.
Okay. Commissioners, I'm going to skip, if you're following on the agenda, I'm going to skip the nominating committee nominations because those nominations are in regard to the new business, which we need a motion to suspend the rules for. And without objection, we'll suspend the rules to hear 19-411. I see no objection. 19-411 is a resolution approving the revision of the membership to add 2 alternates to the Equalization Board. Our assessor, Ms. Hester, is still here. What a champ. But the state's required, this is a state requirement, and we've already appointed her Equalization Board, but now we need to do 2 alternates. So Monday night, 19-411 will be put right behind 19-410, a little different from what I explained to the nominating committee, and then we'll go directly into our reports. So 19-411 will be on our agenda next Monday night. Now back to our reports or nominating committee nominations. Chairman Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. The nominating committee met today at 5:30. We will have one board to nominate 2 people. the Equalization Board, which is a 2-year term. Philip Holt has been nominated to be an alternate for a 2-year term to expire April of 2021. Doug Jackson is nominated to be an alternate for a 2-year term to expire in 2020. And we will put those into as a motion in our April 8th meeting.
Thank you, sir. Under county mayor nominations, under the VSO, Rob Salome nominated to fill the unexpired term of Dave Cooper, term to expire November 2020. And under county mayor appointments, the Public Records Commission, Melissa Miller appointed to replace Jim Zimmer as a patron for a 4-year term to expire April 2023. And under animal control, the entire county commission on the Dangerous Dog Appeal Board. No, I'm kidding. But I wish I wasn't. Commissioners, you'll see your reports that are filed. We've covered the new business item. Without any other business, we stand adjourned.